bring this meeting to order. And let's have Mr. Silva do the Pledge of Allegiance for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Linda, roll call.
Councilmember Hornick.
Here.
Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Silva.
Here.
And Mayor King.
Here. Let me turn this down, thank you. Any reordering of the agenda?
None this evening, sir.
Before we move on, I'd like to thank the staff for a record-breaking 871 page packet. I've been here many years and I've never seen 800 pages of the packet.
I'd say that we aim to please, but I'm sure none of you are pleased.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that was a big one. Okay, let's move on to public comments. Gina Atkin. Scott, yeah, come on up. You're Scott? Okay, yeah, come on up.
Good evening, Buellton City Council. My name is Scott Aiken. My wife Gina and I have lived in Buellton since 2002 and are raising our 4 children here. I'm here this evening to ask the council to reconsider the ban on short-term rentals in residential zones. I know it's a touchy subject, but please hear me out. I understand that the current ban was put in place because of noise, disturbances, traffic, etc. But for residents like me who are interested in hosting short-term rentals in our own homes, we are every bit as interested in preventing those things from happening in our own homes. And our own homes are also our investments. I've already drafted an updated policy. I'm asking that short-term rentals be allowed under 2 conditions. 1, the property owner dwells on the premises. And 2, the property owner will be on site to maintain control. As a property owner and as the guardian of my investment, let me say that none of the reasons cited for banning short-term rentals apply to my situation. Protecting my investment means proactively preventing these risks. My would-be rental unit is very well suited for short-term rentals and very poorly suited for long-term rentals. It's a casita in front of my house, which is good for 1 or 2 guests. It has closet space, but no storage. It has a wet bar, but no kitchen. It has a bedroom, but no living space. That's perfect for short-term rentals. But I would not want to live in there. Any long-term renter in this space would be forced to live as simply as possible and to eat out daily. But with short-term rentals, we, the property owners, can go into the unit regularly and make any necessary modifications and updates. We can more easily keep an eye on the property and maintain its value. Utility consumption is much lower than with a long-term tenant, and parking has never been a problem here. Living in California is expensive. Inflation has more than canceled my raises for the last few years. We have 2 kids in college and tuition is expensive. The income generated from short-term rentals would greatly help us in these tough times when prices are going up, income is going down, and no relief is in sight. So again, I'm asking that short-term rentals be allowed in situations where 1, the property owner dwells on the premises, and 2, the property owner will be on site to maintain control. I think this is a common sense solution that does not reintroduce any of the risks. Nobody would be adversely impacted. I'll be following up with you on this matter, and I look forward to collaborating in good faith. Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming in. Gina, did you want to come up now? Okay.
Gina Aiken, and just to follow up on what Scott said, in regarding to the short-term lodging, I would just like to say that before we started preparing our space for vacation rental, I checked the city municipal codes for short-term lodging. I recall that there were some provisional terms allowing vacation rentals under certain conditions. I wish I would have printed them out, but from what I remember, the stipulations were the rental space must be within the primary home or attached to the home. The homeowner must be present during guest stay, and guest parking must be provided on the property. We were able to check all of those boxes and move forward. We invested financially in furnishing and preparing the space and started renting it out. I can say that our guests, who are limited to 2 people, have not impacted the neighbors or the city in any negative way. In fact, they come for the weekend, not not only to shop and dine in Solvang, Los Olivos, and San Ynez, they shop and dine and enjoy the wineries and breweries in Buellton as well. Our guests have often said that Buellton is the perfect place to stay. It's close enough to everything that the valley has to offer, but away from crowds. They enjoy our quiet neighborhood and they discover that Buellton has a charm of all its own. As a resident and a tax payer in this community, I feel that it is wrong to prohibit property owners from using their own property to generate income for their family. I'm sure in our community, there are a variety of financial challenges that families face. Our personal challenge is that we are a one-income family with 4 kids. 2 of our kids are currently in college and we foot the bill for them. Next year, we'll be adding a 3rd tuition to our plate. And we have a special needs child who will never live independently. So we will fully support our daughter throughout her entire life. I'm not complaining about our circumstances, but I am complaining about the city's unjustified and unreasonable ban on short-term rentals. We were counting on that extra income to help us through the college years and beyond, and I believe that we do have a right to it. So I'm asking that you would modify the city code 19.02.150 to allow short-term rentals under some conditions that have been already mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Michael Baker, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Michael Baker, CEO, United Boys and Girls Clubs, Santa Barbara County. I wanted to just give you an update, a couple things on the Boys and Girls Clubs. We now have 110 members in our Buellton site, which is a new record for us. And what's more amazing, though, is the fact that we're averaging 95 kids a day, which is a huge percentage of membership, which also means that when we have our gold card ceremony here, and we're going to have a lot of space we're going to need for those kids getting their awards. I wanted to let you know also that we're really excited about our children, our members being able to participate in the community garden. Very excited that we have a good relationship there. Our kids are very much looking forward to that. And I wanted to give really 3 special shout outs. City Manager Wolf, I want to thank you for encouraging your leadership team to serve on nonprofit boards. We have an outstanding board member in Andrea Kiefer, who's been tremendous to our organization, a huge help. And I love to point out the fact that she's a club kid too, which you can't go wrong there. I mean, it's pretty good when you're able to say that. And then secondly, I'd like to give a shout out to 2 specific individuals on the dais, and that's David Silva and Mayor King for their continued support of the Boys and Girls Clubs. And David, you did an outstanding job representing our community. And Mayor King, you've done an outstanding job, both of you, in supporting Boys and Girls Clubs as well. So I want to thank both of you for your continued support. And I know there's a competition between the 2 of you, but at the end of the day, you've both been very good to our organization. I want to thank you both very much.
Thank you for coming in, Michael. And I was pleased to see that you guys did have one of those spaces out there in the community garden. So, the kids can get out there and dig in the dirt, and grow their own vegetables and, see what it's like to do that. It's another good thing for them to get an insight on how to grow vegetables, because there's a lot in the soil and how much you water them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really great for these kids to be able to get out there. Okay, let's see, AJ Tarman.
Not drinking, just neuropathy.
Sorry.
The state of West Highway 246 is much worse than a year ago. This month, we have had 5,000 clicks with 80% seeing the 246 danger situation as dire. This is on social media. We'd encourage you all to go on Nextdoor and see the comments. A dog got killed today. 4 crashes since August 5th, most at night. Trucks rolling within feet of coaches, a transformer knocked out, a head-on crash. Ultimate irony is a CHP safety zone that was destroyed. It took me 3 months to get the CHP to put it up. NHTSA says pedestrian deaths are up 53%, NHTSA says 3 things need to be rectified. Let's apply them here. Infrastructure. We need more flash warning crosswalks. We need more signal lights. Our respondents want one at Sycamore. They can't get out to commute in the morning. Things to do. The one-sided contract arrangement with Sheriff Brown needs to be scrapped. All small cities agree that pay for play for essential traffic enforcement service is nothing short of mafia-esque. And I use that not lightly. My wife is Italian. She approved it. Superintendent Hartman, are you listening? You need to provide better oversight. Questions I hear from all those in power, they share my concerns, but we need action. Have GPS speed sensors been installed in hazmat trucks serving the Space Force base? Assemblyman Hart said he was going to work on it. I know Mayor King has talked to the commander out there, but that might be a question you guys can answer later. Why isn't the sheriff, at the very least, parking his unused patrol cars visible to those out of control commuters out here? Park them out front so they think we have some police force out here on 246. Our quality of life is suffering. And I know there are people in Solvang and San Ynez here tonight who see Buellton as a starting point of the valley's problems. So I would suggest you public officials make public safety announcements like they used to do back in the old days that tell commuters to get up 10 minutes earlier and slow the H down. Lompoc has obtained way over $1 million to install in a commercial zone of Highway 246, many signal lights, flashing light crosswalks, and lowered speed limits. Why not us in what we call the Buellton Bermuda Triangle, a residential area, not commercial. People live here. And they're getting really scared when trucks roll in 10 feet away from their bedroom. That's my neighbor. Let's remember, speeding goes on 24 hours a day. One patrol in an 8-hour shift is not enough. Better get photo enforcement as well. Let's show urgency when a transformer gets destroyed next time by a hazmat truck. It may be a Palestine type disaster. I don't speak lightly, friends. Let's get busy.
AJ, thank you. And finally, Janice Pope.
Good evening, council members. My name is Janice Pope, and I own an agency that helps individuals with disabilities live independently in the community. So I travel Santa Barbara, Buellton, San Ynez, Solvang, sometimes Santa Maria. And to agree with him, the traffic, and I live in Solvang off of Viborg, which is a highway between Alamo. It starts here, though, I will say, because I travel a lot and I watch the people coming from Lompoc, and they are coming at speeds that are outrageous. Flying into Buellton. I mean, I go to the vet there right when you're entering, and you literally can't. And I take a survey. I sit in the vet and I'm like, you guys are afraid to come out? They're like, oh my God, some guy, it's just, commuters are fine. I'm a commuter, but we have to commute respectfully. And there's no respect for our traffic laws. There's no respect for stoplights, speed lights, and that's because there's zero enforcement. None. I mean, zero. If you look at the statistics, they do one sighting a month. One sighting a month. That's outrageous. So how do we set the tone so that we all have to commute to work, right? How do we set the tone for people to be respectful when they're going through Buellton, when they come flying in, they're late for work or whatever it is, and they're flying in? How do we set this tone if they don't respect us? Or our laws? How do we enforce those? And it has to come from our police, our sheriffs. We count on you. You guys make the laws. These people make the laws. Make people aware that we mean it. If they don't respect us and they don't respect our laws and we're not enforcing them, it's never going to change. It's going to get worse. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
So just to kind of bring you up to speed a little bit, you guys might want to stick around because we're actually going to do an update on the 246. So for a long time, we have been trying to narrow this down. Hudson's been a big advocate of this as well. And the 246 is very wide. And if all of you have ever driven a car, which all of you have, sometimes when people get a narrow road, 1-lane road, they slow down to 50 miles an hour. And then when they get to the 2-lane road, the passing lane, they speed up to 65 and you can't pass them. And then they go back down to 50 miles an hour and a 55. So this is what we're kind of trying to achieve with this. So you guys might want to stick around for that presentation. And additionally, I have an assurance from the Sheriff's Department that we're going to get a full-time 5-day-a-week traffic officer, motorcycle officer on the 246 in Buellton. We have 2 officers. It took me 2 years to get those 2 officers. They are part-time, so you will not see them out here every day. They have to work on their days off or, you know, after their shift or before their shift, whatever. So you're going to see them here on a infrequent basis. But as soon as we get that full-time motorcycle officer, you're going to see them out there hammering people for speeding through town. Okay, so stick around for that other presentation. All right, having no more public comments, let us move on to the consent calendar. This will be the minutes of August 8, 2024 regular city council meeting. List of claims to be approved and ratified for payment to date for fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year 24-25. Monthly treasurer's report, July 31st, 2024. Ordinance number 2404, an ordinance of the city council of the city of Buellton, California, amending title 2 of the Buellton Municipal Code pertaining to the Buellton Planning Commission. This will be the second reading. Approval of bond reduction for Palm Community Development. And finally, authorization for city manager to execute the Second Amendment to the cooperation agreement between the County of Santa Barbara and the city of Buellton for participation in the Santa Barbara Urban County Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, program for three federal fiscal years 25 to 27.
Motion to approve.
Anyone second that?
Second.
Linda?
Hey, Vice Mayor Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hornick.
Aye.
And Mayor King.
Aye. Okay. And let's move on to presentations, and then we will have a proclamation recognizing National Hispanic Heritage Month. And from the city of Buellton, proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas every year from September 15th to October 15th, Americans celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month by recognizing the history, heritage, and contribution of Hispanics and Latinos to our community and nation. And whereas observation of Hispanic Heritage Week started in 1968 under President Lyndon B. Johnson and was later extended to a 30-day celebration by President Ronald Reagan. And whereas Hispanic and Latino Americans have made immeasurable contributions to our culture and economy and have been integral to the prosperity and enrichment of Buellton and the United States. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month also allows us to honor and celebrate the key leadership roles and accomplishments of Latinos and Hispanics in our community in different professions and sectors, and in all levels of government. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, David King, Mayor of the City of Buellton, on behalf of the entire Buellton City Council, encourage Buellton residents to observe Hispanic Heritage Months with appropriate programs and activities, and do hereby proclaim September 15th to October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month, presented this 12th day of September 2024. And we have Andrea Reyes.
Yes, Adriana Reyes, thank you. So I'm Adriana Reyes from Centro Corazón Comunitario, formerly from the Inclusion Program with People Helping People. So now we've started this new nonprofit that we will continue doing our cultural events, not also in Solving, but also here in Buellton. So thank you so much for this recognition.
That's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Take that off. And I'm gonna come over here with you and get a picture, and then we'll take a picture of all of us with the seal.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Okay. Let us move on to public hearings. Got any public hearings?
No, we do not have public.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let us move on to council member comments or items. John? Comments or items?
None this time, thank you.
Okay, David?
Nope, I'm good.
Hudson?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Okay.
Sorry, it's been a month. So first off, I know that the city is conducting a financial investment and outside compensation study for employees. I know we previously discussed the idea of doing an employee down payment assistance. And I know that they're probably looping that in as part of the outside compensation study, but I was going to ask if we could maybe consider that independent of the compensation study. And just one item I wanted to throw out there because I'd like to see if we could get that ball rolling. The idea there being that that potentially could be a net positive financially for us. So I would like to see if that could happen. That's one thing.
I will have a conversation with Scott about
Okay. I wanted to check in with City Manager Scott Wolf. Apologies for not bringing this up beforehand, Scott. I'm just going through my notes now. I know we were talking about the biting fly control and as a vector issue. I wasn't sure if you had any progress with that.
I have been unable to figure out a valid path forward on that one.
Okay. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Mhm.
We was brought to my attention, we have a little bit of a blight issue on Calor. We have like kind of sort of dead mulch situation there and lack of any irrigation to get any plants sort of repopulating that area in Calor and 246.
Well, yes. Mhm.
So after discussing with Scott Wolf, my understanding is that there's no budget in our landscaping for like replacing the mulch and there's no irrigation lines there. I was hoping maybe staff could look into that and maybe amend our landscaping budget to include periodically, however frequently, replacing the mulch that lines 246 along Riverview and Calor there to and see how much it would be to irrigate and get new plants in there. I don't know if we did concurrence on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I think that'd be good.
Okay. All right.
It's kind of a dead zone there.
Yeah.
The guy moved his fence, I know that, and but he used to have trees there and I think they were his trees,
Okay.
but that's my recollection. It's been a while.
The last thing, I did want to follow up on public comment. I know I'd spoken individually to the sheriff about this before, but we do have sheriff stations just parking their cars right there. If we could just maybe ask them if they would consider parking one of their cars on the street, that might help slow traffic.
I'll
Literally
talk
just
to
15
Lieutenant.
feet. Okay.
Let's just hope they don't run into that like they did the speed. It's like, really, of all the things to hit, you hit the speed sign.
It is the sheriff.
And then we get their attention. And then so this is a bigger item, but I think forgive me if I brought this up before, it's been a month, I don't remember, but we have a lot of city expenses coming up. I was hoping that we could maybe agendize some of our priorities and some of our expenses that we have coming up as sort of a separate budgetary item, so we can sort of get the list of what maybe we want to consider funding before we have different iterations of, hey, we're gonna fund this, hey, we're gonna fund this, and sort of have a holistic approach to what our budget is gonna look like and what big expenses we have coming up for future use. Do we need concurrence on that too?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would,
Sorry, could you try?
Sure. So we have a lot of city expenses coming up. I can just rattle off a list of them. This employee down payment assistance idea, the library hour expansion potentially. One agendized item today, 1,000 trees in 1,000 days. This park footprint expansion, the skiing of the 246, the sheriff, police, motorcycle officer going to be on duty. It's gonna, all of those are going to be budgetary items that are going to tap into our ongoing budgetary expenses. I know we're going to want to fund all of those, but in order to sort of prioritize, I think we should, have the staff bring us like, hey, these are going to be ballpark costs for these. Do you guys want to prioritize how we're going to look at spending that and just sort of get a good list of upcoming spend and ballpark figures?
Yeah.
Something like that.
well,
Our wish list that everybody went on that.
we have a list of priorities, but that's not necessarily spending priorities because not all of those require general fund expenditures. Some of those items are already covered under the budget because we have, for instance, the sheriff's department, the motorcycle officer. The cost for that is included within our budget, should be included this year.
Okay.
Because it's part of a contract and we know what that's going to cost. But for those things that have not been included in the budget, if the council desires, we can bring a list of those things that, if anyone can think of anything you want to bring forward right now, we'll add those to a list. And at the very least, you'll have a list in front of you that you can utilize to have that discussion. And if you want to go further in terms of establishing a priority for your, the council's program moving forward, we can do that as well.
Would that mean though that we'd have to compile a list and have the staff research of the expenditure before we'd even be able to have the discussion? So you almost have to do the research of all 7 projects before you can talk about one?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, we want to have as much detail as possible, but in the end, the council's going to decide what the city is going to spend money on.
Yeah.
And so if you know that it's more important, for instance, to have project A funded than project B, then you'll place that higher on the priority list. The real test of this is going to lie with the council and its administration of the budget, because if it's not in the budget right now, if you want to make an expenditure on it, you have to do a budget adjustment and add it to the budget. Or you can say, we're going to look at this next year or the following year, or plan it out over several fiscal years. But it's always a good idea to make major financial decisions in light of other potential decisions you'll be making. So we can bring that to the council if you'd like, and you can receive and file it, or you can have a discussion on priorities, however you want to proceed with it.
Yeah, I think it'd be good just to have it so we could either receive and file it, or if we want to discuss it, we could discuss it.
We have priority for this year already.
So those are council priorities, but they don't necessarily include some of the things you're talking about. For instance, 1,000 trees in 1,000 days, and some of these budgetary expenses that come up that are new, that hadn't been considered when we had that discussion. I'm gonna ask you to hold off on adding any more priorities to that list until the year comes up, so we have an opportunity to wrap that up. But in this case, it's not necessarily giving us council priorities. It's what you're doing is you as a council are prioritizing how you as a council are going to spend money. And it's a tool for yourselves more than it would be a tool for staff.
I don't want to, go outside a non-agendized item here and talk too much about this, but the ongoing concern, I think, is our operating budget and the forecast for the future. And I know we have a lot of initiatives coming up. I know we have a ballot measure to increase our TOT and whatever else, but that's by no means guaranteed. And we need to sort of start looking at, sustainability in terms of our future projects and what we're going to be funding. So
Totally fine, as long as we're just aware of it. Adding a step does delay, we have to be mindful of.
delays, right?
Yeah, and so just by adding another step, and that's fine. I just want to make sure we're talking about all the implications. But yeah, sounds good to me.
I don't think it necessarily would need to delay any implementation, any agenda item. Do you think it was just by inherent staff time?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, unless you wanted to hold off on any budget adjustments until that was discussed. For instance, there's an item on the agenda tonight regarding the trees.
Right.
If you wanted to make a budget adjustment on that tonight, then in order to get that project started, you could do that. If you wanted to wait until priorities were established, you would be delaying that. So
I think it would be good at least for like a receive and file, just to get our knowledges, our collective knowledge on the same page.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, we can all contact him offline, to do that.
Okay, well, I was thinking he would bring it forward as a staff item.
I will, I'll bring it, but if you contact me offline with, you have a list of.
Oh, a list of items?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
so
for
I,
sure,
just so I
for
don't
sure.
miss anything. There's a lot of
For sure.
moving parts here, so.
Right.
Are we still studying the splash pad? That in our.
Yeah, are we studying that?
So,
Yeah, that's still on our list of research items to do.
Okay.
We have
and it-
received back some information and we have staff that's working on that. It's
Okay.
just gonna take some time to pull that information together.
Is that,
Because costs aren't readily available to us because it's different from the playground equipment that they're standard, okay, we know this is gonna cost X, Y, and Z. If you want options A, B, C, splash pads have to be designed and the companies will not pre-design it for us like they do the other ones.
for sure.
So it's just going to take a little bit longer to do
Is
research for it.
Is that part of the footprint expansion for the ADA accessibility stuff we talked about, or is that?
No,
separate?
that is separate.
All right, anything else?
Actually, that's.
Okay, any written communications, Scott?
none this evening.
And then we will move on to committee reports. John?
Have no committee reports.
David?
Attended the 3CE meeting. That was just a discussion of the local control structuring and just a look at how to make it more efficient as a committee, since there's a 19-member committee that grows out from it. So it's more of just self-regulation discussion of that. But mostly it was just kind of the fun of bureaucracy. Great time. Great read.
Hudson?
Just the green team meeting we had today. Mayor King was in attendance. I don't know if you want to take the ball on that one, but.
No, go ahead. You remember.
We talked about this 1,000 Trees in 1,000 Days initiative and the Tree City USA designation. I followed up with Scott. We had this meeting just like not an hour ago. So I followed up with Scott just about the last remaining bits that the city needs to do in order to get a Tree City designation. And I believe that entails ironing out a couple things with the planning commission's roles and the tree advisory board and how that will work. I think we need to cement that, but I think otherwise all of our boxes are checked now. And staff will follow up on that. And then we discussed the idea of how we might roll out the 1,000 Trees in 1,000 Days initiative. Eva Powers, who's instrumental in the Buellton Botanic Gardens, she has been, along with Mayor King, sort of instrumental in how we're going to roll this out and securing what I understand is some funding already. And we'll discuss that more at the agendized item, but the discussion revolved around that, where we might see these trees go around various parks and along the 246 and get some shade and canopy coverage going on. So that was exciting if we can move forward on that, but that's what the sort of conversation revolved around.
Okay. And the only thing I've had since our last meeting was a North County sub-regional meeting for SBCAG. We were given a presentation by the High Patrol that they are trying to get a grant to step up patrols there, and they actually showed us a video that was a dash cam on a big rig, and it was a blind curve. There were two big rigs coming the opposite direction, and one of them was in his lane. And he had to go up onto the shoulder to avoid this big rig and doing a head-on collision. And I'm shocked that the thing did not roll over when it went up onto the shoulder. So they are trying to obtain a grant now to get some overtime out there on the 166 and start really citing people for things like that, unsafe passing, speed. There's a lot of speed out there. And it was also a presentation on the 166 and Black Road construction project, and they just kind of brought us up to date on that. Okay, and that is all I have, and we will move on to business items. Number 8 will be annual report for January 1st, 2023 through December 31. Sorry about that. January 1 through December 23 through December 31st of 2023 from Visit Santa Ynez Valley, and the lead on this will be Chanel Zamora.
Good evening, Mayor King and members of the City Council. Tonight you will be receiving the 2023 Visit San Ynez Valley Annual Report. This presentation will be given tonight by Shelby Sim, the President and CEO of Visit SYV. And I will turn over the presentation to him. And then once he's done, staff recommends that City Council receive and file the 2023 Visit San Ynez Valley report.
Shelby, please.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mayor, City Council, Shelby Sim, President CEO, visit the San Ynez Valley. You ready to go, Linda? Thank you very much. I'll just give you a signal or we'll just go for it. I have now been in my role for 10 years and still feel like I'm the luckiest guy alive. I've also been a resident of Buellton for the last 10 years. Really happy we moved here. I grew up on the coast and living in the valley, we feel like we graduated to the beautiful San Ynez Valley in Buellton. Okay, so I submitted my report a few months ago. This is a presentation pretty much taken from our annual meeting that we held at Petros during the lake fire, like less than a mile from the fire line at the time. Still had 100 attendees. We were promoting that we were open for business, and so we wanted to walk what we talked, and so we held it, and it was a great attended meeting. All right, so please go ahead, Linda. This is the staff, me, you've heard about, Danielle, our vice president. We just hired our first director of sales, Cynthia Gonzalez. We have never really gone after group travel, so that's going to be a focus. It's very exciting for us. It's a big educational thing for the hoteliers because when they first hear it, they feel that, well, groups want discounts. Well, discounts worth it if they're filling their hotel in an empty time anyway. So we're really focusing on that and also on international travel. I'm going to do a lot of asides here as I speak. 85% of our visitors are from Southern California, and we've had a really good run. But the entertainment economy is dead right now in Southern California. So if you have anything to do with the entertainment industry, be it a restaurant, a gas station, anything, you don't really have a lot of spending money because there's not a lot of work going on. So we've really started to focus on direct flight markets as well as international Central California and Northern California. Okay. This is our board. I'm going to cheat looking over at the screen a bunch. Linda Johansson, she owns Pea Soup Anderson Inn. And then we have Jonathan Rosenson, who has Coquelicot Courtyard, Coquelicot Wines in Los Olivos, as well as First and Oak in Solving, as well as Maribel Inn. And then Jim Flagg, he has the Hampton Inn here in Buellton. Stormy Strickland, she's the director of sales for all the Chumash properties. Kathleen Cochran, she's the general manager at Alisal Ranch. Greer Scholl, she's director of marketing for all of Fess Parker's enterprises. Christopher, he is the general manager out at Genevieve in San Ynez, as well as the Victor. And then Jeff Hartman, who is the owner operator of Highline Adventures. And then finally, we have Will Henry, who owns Pico Restaurant, as well as Lumen Wines. Thank you. Brief history. We originally started as a hotel association. In 2010, we merged with the Visitors Association in 2014. So at that time, we took on membership. We are funded completely by the visitor. We do not receive any government funds. We get $3 a night from any overnight stay of our 1,600 rooms in the San Ynez Valley. And a good year, that's about $1.6 million that we get to use. All right. DMO is a destination marketing organization. Our goal is to attract people to visit the place by showcasing the attraction activities. And we often work with local business government agencies to do that. So we're different from a chamber in that the chamber is more B2B, business to business. And we are purely tourism, purely bringing visitors to the area. Our mission is to promote the San Ynez Valley region as a diverse destination to everyone to experience, which creates prosperous, there we go, and sustainable outcomes and overnight stays for businesses in Buellton, Ballard, Los Alamos, Los Olivos, San Ynez, and Solvang. How do we achieve our mission? By partnerships, robust marketing campaign, a grant program and sponsorships, travel trade, PR, and event programming. These are a few of our partners we're very proud of. And then overall strategy is continue to focus on the soft seasons and midweek. We're pretty good on the weekends. And then, of course, our drive markets, which are Southern California, and then expanding out to other markets. We're learning from our data that people come from Phoenix and people come from Las Vegas, and we really didn't know that before. So we're continually evolving into going to where the folks are coming from. Again, target markets, you see LA, Palm Springs, San Francisco, Central Valley, longer drive markets, and then our direct flights. They continue to grow. I don't think we have on there, but Delta just started a direct flight from Atlanta as well as Salt Lake City. So the Santa Barbara airport, that really opens up international for us because the Delta's big overseas, and so they can fly into the US, into Atlanta or Salt Lake, and then right into Santa Barbara. So it's a big benefit. We started the Perfectly Santa Ynez Valley campaign this year. Very excited about it. We've won a few awards already, and I think I have a few samples here. Go ahead, Linda, click on the next one. They won't click, it's a picture. And then the next one, I think. There it is. And then you got to start the video.
From riding horses to 5 courses. This is Perfectly Santa Ynez Valley. Plan your trip at visitsyv.com.
Go ahead and click forward.
Right.
Very good. It took me a while to figure out how to go forward on that. That's good. Kathy, come on in. Or do you want to hang out? You can do that. Or you're good. Yeah, come on in. Yeah. Content forward approach. So as everyone does, we sneakily seduce folks to click in and learn more about us by creating blogs, by sharing articles. And so it doesn't look necessarily like an ad. It's like a thing, oh, let's learn about the Santa Ynez Valley, and then we get you. So that's kind of what that is. Go ahead and click. 2023 restaurant weeks. You know, this was originally, it's 10 years old now too. It was originally created in January to coincide with Visit California's, and during a slow time to get folks out to the restaurants. In the Santa Ynez Valley, it has become a community event. It's an opportunity for the folks who work the front lines, who work the front desks, who do the tour operators, that kind of thing, to go out and experience our restaurants. So it's a very cool community thing. We hope that visitors come, but we know it's a chance for our younger and older workers to go out and be able to talk about all of our restaurants by experiencing them. Midweek, place to be midweek. We started this during COVID. This last year, we keep kind of tooling it around what's going to work best. In 2023, it goes from January through April. If you stay 2 nights, Sunday through Thursday, we would give you a $100 Visa card that you could go out and spend. So anytime, we'll pay you $100 to come midweek. And this is an example from last year to this year. So the next slide. That's this year. And so the Visa cards weren't always as reliable. So we went to cash. So if you checked in, you got $100 cash for going in. And look at the difference, over $60,000 in revenue for the hotels in those slow months from January to April. All right. We have an app for that. It's called Discover Santa Ynez Valley. It was kind of prompted by a board member, and we staff really didn't believe in it, but it's taken off and people use it. And so you can go on to our app and you can just, search for wineries or restaurants, create an itinerary. It'll map it out for you. It's an amazing thing. And over almost 2,500 folks used it last year. And then living up to the hype. This is some of the press we've got in 2023. So not only the small fries, but as big as you can get as far as press goes for the Santa Ynez Valley. I think we show some samples of that. In 2023, we got several Sunset Travel Awards. We got the Santa Ynez Valley got the best destination. Bob's, the Inn at Maddie's Tavern, Hitching Post 2, Bar La Côte, Alisal Ranch. it was an incredible year for awards for us in 2023 from Sunset Magazine. And then Wine Enthusiast, best wineries and more to visit in the Santinas Valley right now. Anytime we love Santa Barbara, we love the coast, but as you know, we're often referred to as Santa Barbara or Santa Barbara's wine country. It's a real win for us, we feel, when the Santinas Valley name is used and not Santa Barbara's. A great example of that is just a few weeks ago when, as you know, and the whole world heard that the President of the United States was vacationing in the Santinas Valley. He didn't say Santa Barbara, they said the Santinas Valley. We're very proud of that. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we, we're in international markets now. And so I'll be in London in October, and they heard about it and they want to talk about the president's visit. I'm already hearing from press and tour operators that they want to talk about, the president coming to the Santinas Valley. So it's incredible. It's in the same sentence, Santinas Valley vacation, it's incredible. Again, just a few examples of the press. Go ahead and just kind of click through. AAA, we saw that Condé Nast Traveler. Grants and sponsorships, also a big thing that we do. We grow it every year. For Buellton, we help with the Wine and Chili Fest. We help with the events out at the Botanic Garden. And Kathy could probably rattle off the other ones better than I, the Brew Fest and also community events as well. So we spent almost $115,000 in our grant program last year. 115,000. Yeah, that's right. Travel trade. So we also get out and we promote to the world, and we work with partners. So this is the United States' largest travel trade show, IPW. We have partnered with Kathy and Buellton for a good 5 years now. Kathy, at least 6, 7, 8. This is an example of our booth. And I think we're going to redesign it this next year, but it's gorgeous. It's a double booth. And this picture here shows the partnerships between Buellton, the city of Solvang, Alisol, Chumash, and of course us. Earlier this year, I went to, no, this was last year, Shelby. Okay. Canada. So it was like a 3-day immersive thing with Canada Press. So not only one-on-ones with the press, but then we would hang out and have dinners or go to Niagara Falls, that kind of thing, to really get to know each other and be able to speak intimately about the destination.
There's a missile going on. Do you have anything promoting?
Do you hear that?
I've been able to get them to have a banner of the Santinas Valley yet on the, if that's what you're referring to.
That was a rocket launch.
Get it on the side of the.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so and then a couple years ago, I started going to the California Cup. But it was started by Visit California, and now it's a gentleman. He took it with him when he went to Yolo County. It is a 3-day immersive golf trip with 30 tour operators from international markets, as well as 30 destinations. So again, an incredible opportunity to sit in the cart, and have a few laughs and play some terrible golf and learn about the destination and be able to promote our destination. The exciting thing about this is that I won the bid to host it next year. So we're going to have them here in June, over 30 tour operators from around the world here we're going to play both Alisal courses and La Purisma. Yeah, it's going to be great. Taste of the Santinas Valley. We started this in 2019 with a big splash, and then that COVID thing happened, so we had to stop for a few years. But we've been back since 22, and so this year will be our 4th Taste of the Santinas Valley. We work with over 100 partners over the 6 towns to make this happen. Collaborative dinners in the streets, daytime activities. The purpose is to give everyone a taste of what the Santinas Valley has to offer, and hopefully we'll come back and spend a longer time. Oh, and here's a video. So this is from 2023.
Joby, that was a great video.
Thank you. Thanks. That zip line sure is visual. It's a great thing to utilize. And Taste is happening later this month, 9/26 through 29th. On Sunday, the 29th, we'll be celebrating Sideways all day. It's the 20th year. We're going to have a celebration out at Hitching Post for a 3-hour deal. And then we're going to show the movie at the Solving Festival Theater that evening. And Virginia Matson's going to join us for that, for both of those events. It's going to be very cool.
What day is that again?
It starts on Thursday, the 26th, and then it ends on Sunday, the 29th.
What's the Pitching Post event?
That is 12 to 3 on Sunday. And I'm happy to provide tickets to all the city council and anybody that would like to come to the movie. That's a 700-seat theater I got to try and fill. So let me know. I'd be happy to invite you out to see the movie. What's going on in 2024? So go ahead and click. This is just like what we did this year for Restaurant Weeks. After COVID, it was traditional. If you're familiar with Restaurant Weeks, we would only go up a penny every year. It was 3 courses, $20.20, $20.20, $20.21. After COVID, the restaurants could no longer sustain that. And so now we're offering it 3 courses at $30, $40, or $50. Go ahead. Earlier this year, Danielle and I, we went to Copenhagen for a travel trade show. We went to a consumer show in Sweden as well as Denmark. And then we went to Berlin to their big IPW. And then I'll be in London in October also. So we're just continuing to push the international. That was a couple shots from the, I think it was the Denmark consumer show where I got to speak and talk about the Santinas Valley. That was great. This was this year's IPW. So we partnered with, it was in Los Angeles. So we partnered with Visit Santa Barbara, the Chumash, as well as the Vintners Association to have an outdoor activation outside of the actual floor booth. And it was very effective, very fun. We went to New York. And we met with all of New York media to talk about the West Coast, and we hosted a happy hour. So that's you see me up there toasting everybody and inviting them out to have some Santinas Valley wine. What's next? Growing the organization. We're going to do a new website. We've got a couple bids we're looking at now. We're going to invest about $120,000 in a new website. We haven't done it since I came on 10 years ago. We've only had one. Expansion of travel trade, especially international. Of course, Taste of the Santinas Valley, I spoke of coming up in a couple of weeks. Hosting the 2025 California Cup. Working on international small groups. As we know, we don't have 2,000 hotel rooms, not only in one hotel, but in the entire Santinas Valley. So we can't do big conventions, but gosh darn, we should be the retreat capital of the world. We can do 30 or less. We can do 60. So we're really working on that. And then we have the SYV Maker Series that we're excited that hopefully will come out
by the end of this year, where we're going to profile different personalities in the Santinas Valley, different people that do stuff like the gal that does ceramics, like different winemakers, chefs, bakers, that kind of thing. That's what really, it's the stories, right, that bring the people out. I think we have a sample. Yeah, go ahead and go through. And then there's a video on the side there, Linda.
So our philosophy is working with vineyards on the long term so that we can build a track record and that the winemaking becomes more intuitive. So if you've got 10 different vintages, each vintage tells a different story. You know, the weather is different every vintage, the climate, the sites are different, the blocks are different. And to me, we try to make the wine to where it's a clear picture of every vintage. Pinot Noir is one of those grapes that tell a story, if you can call it that, better than any other grape. There's a perfect site, there's a perfect climate. Everything has to line up with Pinot Noir for it to be a perfect snapshot of each year. I feel like making wines in our style, you manipulate less, and then the story is more true from where it's from. And I like to see the evolution in the bottle and, you know, year after year, see how it changes. To me, that's what draws people to Burgundy and to the old world, is seeing how these wines taste in 10 or 20 years. And I feel like this area has the potential to make the same wines.
Thank you. Oh, and this is, you know, TikTok. It's short-term video, short form video, and reels on Instagram. So we just did a shoot all over the valley, and with a bunch of just small 15-second pieces that we'll be able to cut and move and change to be able to be on top of what's going on in the world as far as social media and the shortest attention span imaginable. And this is kind of a sizzle reel from our latest shoot. All right. The rest is boring stats. So I know some of you are peeked up on that. I'm not going to give them to you, but you have that presentation to dig into them. But I will say that, let's just go ahead and click through a little bit. Talks about the visitor, what we're looking at, what matters to us, and then what qualifies, where the folks are coming from, where they're spending money on. Go ahead and click. This is inaccurate, that last line. We are down this year. The entire state is down this year. It is a soft year for us. We have opportunities tracking actual occupancy because there's an actual star report that the whole world uses. And only 11 of our 37 hotels report. So it gives us an skewed picture. So please take that with a grain of salt. Go ahead and click. And this is, the number one markets, where the folks are coming from, what they're doing, the percentage that are staying in the hotels. Really, it's go ahead and click. And go ahead and click. That's a hard one to read. Folks are spending a lot of money on the outdoors. We have found that 40% of our visitors are families. Only 10% are winery visitors. So it was a real eye opener that it's really the families that are looking for things in the Santinas Valley as opposed to the wine drinkers. Again, it's kind of a down year. There's they call it revenge travel, which is what we went through after the COVID, where everybody got back out. That's all done now. We are competing with Europe. People are paying those high airline prices, and there's more folks in Italy and Spain than have ever been there in the history of mankind. And so we're challenged by that. We also have elections coming up. People are worried about that, inflation, that kind of thing. So we have opportunities. I just today got back from a conference, Cal Travel, where the president of Visit California was saying that we've been spoiled having such amazing growth over the years, and that we are now where we were at 2018 and 2019, and they really expect it to be flat for the next few years. So it went 19, and then of course COVID, and then the revenge travel, we were cruising, and then it's back to 18, 19, and they don't think it's going to really move up for the next few years. And then the challenges, the booking windows are so short. Nobody books months in advance now. Now they're looking at 50 different websites and making that decision a week out. So all of your sales folks at the hotels trying to get budgets, all the GMs trying to get budgets, it's a real opportunity for them. People are being more budget conscious. Again, they're looking at different websites. They're looking for deals. And then the hospitality staffing is still struggling. We are doing better in the Santinas Valley than Los Angeles, San Francisco, or San Diego are. They still have not recovered from the pandemic. They're still working hard. Where it took us less than an hour to recover, the conventions are not happening. They're still struggling in that way. So the bad news, personal financial stability is flat. Everything is too expensive right now. These are like the traveler sentiment. And now is not the time to be spending the money on travel is what people are thinking. But there is optimism, and leisure travel remains to be a spending priority. As I sit and speak with different operators and different media, the mid-range publications are getting smaller and smaller and going online, and the luxury publications are growing by leaps and bounds. The luxury is where everything, that's where the growth market is in luxury. Next slide. And this kind of just says the same kind of thing. Yeah, and I think we can just go on from here, and then you guys can look at this at your leisure. But it's pretty much that same thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And that was very well presented. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate your support. Oh, right on. Yeah. We don't. Well, let's talk. Give me a card, or I'll give you my number. Yeah. Yeah. Are we able to? Yeah. You need to list it on there.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
No questions.
Yeah. I sit there.
Hey,
Oh, there's no one.
I know where there is. What? No, he was in a conversation. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Shelby, would you come back to the microphone?
Yes, I will.
Go ahead, David.
I did have a question, just 'cause
Yes.
I know that with a lot of your focus being on midweek group,
Yes.
is there going to be, I think as a local, we always have this conversation of restaurant dining Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially Monday and Tuesday is always kind of a tough time for that. Is
Yeah.
that is that something that is being discussed about that? Because I would assume that if you're doing midweek group, would that be a means of us having that element if we could actually find places to eat on Mondays and Tuesdays as locals too?
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
Okay.
It's my hoteliers say, will you please tell people to be open so that our folks have something to do? And then the restaurants say, will you fill those restaurants so that I can be open? And so that's it. Yeah. Tuesday and Wednesday is not a good day to try to find something in the Santinas Valley, just all over the valley. You know, there's a few spots, Leonardo's is good and you've got spots here in Buellton that are open, Nana Thai is open all the time, but yeah, they're two and it's an opportunity.
Okay. I was just
Absolutely.
curious if that's
Yeah.
in this discussion, because then as locals who always get upset with tourism priority, it's like this is a means that if we get these groups coming in,
Right.
we also would have a place to eat on these days too. So I feel like we
Absolutely.
just need to, okay. So
Yeah.
check. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I was over in Solvang on Monday and I was going to a meeting and it was like 6:15. I tried to go on a peasant's feast.
Yeah.
6:15, they're closed. Like, you're
Yeah.
kidding me.
Yeah.
Eating at that hour? Impossible.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, Shelby, thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you. Is
Uh,
it a bad time to bring up the billboard, Scott?
That would be a bad time to bring that up.
Okay.
yes. And you know, what's funny is we're all sitting here and the rocket's going off, and I've been here since 1996. And back then, if a rocket went off, everybody ran outside and they're, oh my God, look at the rocket.
I half
And-
expected you to stall the
and-
meeting further.
No, and nowadays it's like, hey, can you shut the window? It's rattling the house. Can you shut the window? Okay, let us move on to number 9. Consideration of arts and culture project applications. This will be Buellton Fall Fest 2024 and Santinas Children Museum Discovery Days. And our lead on this is going to be Allison Fiery. Sorry.
Pardon me, I haven't interrupted because my daughter started a job with working for the headdress. So I'll recuse myself from the discussion, or I'll sit one. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Allie Fiery, and I am the recreation coordinator, or one of the recreation coordinators for the Buellton Rec Center. I'm the staff liaison for the Arts and Culture Committee. And I'm here tonight because Andres from Enfuego Events was out of town. And so I wanted to come and explain the recommendation that the committee had for his proposal. As you know, he has brought the Buellton Fall Fest to our town for the last 3 years. Last year, they had over 19,000 people come through the weekend, and it's been a really fun, family-friendly event with vendors and carnival rides and live music and all sorts of different things. And he has come, and the Arts and Culture Committee has recommended funding for the past 3 years. This year, he requested between 20 and 25,000 to help with the cost of the live music. The committee looked at that request and has decided to recommend an amount of 8,000 to council. That would basically cover the headlining bands for Saturday and Sunday. So the Mad Cabbies, 6,500 for them on Saturday and 1,500 for the mariachi band on Sunday. And in exchange, they have promised to put us, the Arts and Culture Committee, on all the advertising, and we'll be able to do sort of a short spiel before the bands perform both nights so that hopefully we can attract more artists and people to submit proposals in the future. So that was their recommendation. I'm just making that on his behalf.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, Ashley is here to present herself for that one. So thank you.
And John, just for clarification, where does John's daughter work?
So the councilman's daughter now works for the operator for item A. So if you want to do item A without him and then he can come back for item B, that would be fine.
She works for Enfuego?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so for the St. Inez Children's Museum, John, you can come on back up.
Or do you want to have us do the?
We'll probably wrap up this one first.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Okay, right, let's do that. All right, 140, so they ask for 20 to 25, and the recommendation from our Buellton Fall Fest was 8,000. So it is going to be incumbent on us to come up with a number that we're all agreeable to, between 8 and 25,000.
Yeah. I have a question for Ally.
Yeah, Ally, you want to come on? back
Sorry.
up?
For this, oh, wait, yeah. Just to confirm, how many years have we been funding the Art Fall Festival?
This
through
is
Arts
the
and Culture?
third year they've asked for funding.
Okay.
And the previous 2 years, they supported almost all of the stage and lighting, which I think was around 20,000. This year, the committee has said that they still want to help with it this year. And then they did tell Andres that probably they would like him to probably find funding in other avenues in the future. Not that it couldn't be brought back to us, but we do want to start to kind of put some money towards some different projects.
Thank you.
No question.
Do we have any public comment on this? All right. Any questions for staff? Okay, Ally, thank you.
Thank you.
I think 10,000 would be a reasonable number. I mean, Arts and Culture said, 8, we throw a couple more thousand in there for this project. If there's any other opinions on that. Hudson?
So I was just gonna say, everybody loves Fall Fest. I love Fall Fest. Went there 2 years in a row. Everybody has a good time. I remember last year having this conversation, and I think that I'm happy to support it. I remember having the conversation with Andres that we were thinking, hey, it would be good to give him some sponsors. And I hope that he, continues to look for that. What I feel like is I'm happy to have Mad Caddies. I'm happy to have headlining bands do it. I would hope that they reach out and try and, get some bands that need a little bit more exposure and are willing to do it for less as well. And not need to spend so much money just on headlining bands. I, in this situation, tend to defer to the Arts and Cultural Committee, who had the conversation with Andres. And so I would have just been inclined to grant the award that they recommended. But I can be swayed in that opinion.
Okay. And I think they will probably come back to us for the parking funding, which is something going to be separate.
We will see an
Independent, separate.
application for not only an application to the council for approval of use of Avenue of Flags medians for Fall Fest and the closure of the streets, but also for a sponsorship request from the city for things like traffic control and that sort of thing. And I believe they're coming in with a request for $10,000.
So that's
Somewhere between 8 and 10.
Yeah, right.
So this is
I
just
thought-
for the band.
This is just for the
just for the
bands, yes.
Any input on that?
I'm inclined to follow the lead of Councilmember Hornick with an $8,000 approval and knowing that there's an $8,000 to $10,000 request coming down the road. I would try to be mindful of the fact with a third year of funding, I think that maybe it's time to just kind of slowly run away. Fall Festival. Yes.
Could you come up to the microphone, Ali, because this is going out.
I hope you have your Fitbit on for all the steps.
I just wanted to make note that the committee did make a comment to Andres that in the future, they would prefer that it would be local bands or somebody that we could support in getting kind of exposure for them. A lesser thing that if it could be something where we were supporting maybe a youth band or a local mariachi band, that we would be open to funding things in the future. But as far as doing this type of funding in the future, this would probably be the last time that we would be looking at a request like this.
Which is again, why I
Yes, sir.
to defer to the committee because they have had that discussion.
Right. Okay, and I will refer to that, and I will agree with the 8,000. I will bring it back for a possible motion.
Motion to approve Buellton Fall Festival funding in the amount of $8,000.
Second.
Linda?
Vice Mayor Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Hornick.
Aye.
And Mayor King.
Aye. And John, you want to come back?
That's the first recusal. Welcome to the club, buddy.
Get kicked out of the room. Okay, and the next will be Santa Ynez Valley Children's Museum Discovery Days.
Hello. I'm Ashley. I'm the Executive Director of Play with the San Ynez Valley Children's Museum, which I know, I'm sorry we didn't name it the Buellton Children's Museum. We were going for valley-wide community participation. So sure, I hear you. So what we're asking for is $7,000 for our fall mosaic day. So we've been doing discovery days for the past 3 years. We've done a total of 9 events. We've had over 1,200 people. So we're averaging 100, 150, 200 people at several of our events. Our first ones were smaller when we were just getting our legs under us. Our last event had 220 families come, which was incredible. We're doing free events, and that's why we're coming to you for funding. The Children's Museum isn't open yet, although we are doing a fall fundraiser this weekend to show off our 4 completed exhibits, 2 that are brand new that people haven't seen yet. So we're about halfway through our building program. But while we're not yet open and we don't have our fence and we don't have open hours and stuff yet, so we can't serve the community that way, the way we're trying to bridge the gap in services that are needed for children and families, and especially free services so that all the families in the valley can come and not just some, is to do these discovery days. So the discovery days, we have our museum open. It's kind of like an open house. We're going to have our ant hill that they can run and climb on, like at the Santa Barbara Zoo. We're going to have our dino dig open. We'll have our dirt zone, our mud kitchen. So we have a lot of these sensory activities open. And then we also do a take home craft. So what we're doing for this one is mosaics. It's big, it's expensive, it's messy, but it's so fun. And last year we had about 120 people come for our mosaic days. We're anticipating twice that this year, just because people know about us more and our site looks better. It's not just a dirt lot. So people like coming more now that it's just prettier and more functional. So we're looking at a head count of at least 200. Again, this is a free event. We advertise in English and Spanish. We advertise at all the local schools. So our marketing costs stay really low because we're going out in their kind of parent square or their parent communication. The advertising in Spanish is really important to us. Again, we want to hit all the families in the valley. And so that's what we are asking for. So that $7,000 price point covers quite a lot. And that's what we want. What questions can I answer?
Okay, I will bring it back to council for any questions. Or any questions of.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just chime in here. Yes, the request is for $7,000. The Arts and Culture Committee reviewed this and is recommending a grant of $5,000.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. Any questions for Apple?
Yeah, so just quickly, so the Children's Museum is under construction.
True.
And then
yes,
hopefully opening is in conjunction with the library opening, if you know.
We're not going to tie into it, although we have been really pacing with them so that we're opening around the same time. I think our projected opening for a soft launch is going to be 2025. I don't know when in 2025 yet because it's pending funding. And again, we're having our big fundraiser in 2 days. So we should know a lot more about that. But yeah, we are not going to be open with public hours where we have staff and a fence and all that. We're not open like that yet. And by the end of 2025, we should be able to get at least part of our site open for schools to come and do tours and that sort of thing.
And so
Yep.
this is the purpose of this is not fundraising, the purpose is kind of community outreach.
100%. We put out a little donation box, but really what this is to provide the services that we want to provide once we're open before we're even open. So from the beginning, it's just been a time to get kids playing outside. And especially with us launching in 2020, that was such a huge premium. Not every kid had a yard. A lot of our families live in places with apartments and they just don't have the space. And so we want to be a space for them even before we open. So that's what it is. It's not a fundraising thing. We're doing our fundraiser that's, for adults this weekend. Our discovery days, our not so scary movies, our open houses are all free and open to the public. And it's just more getting kids and families playing outside. Great question.
And you intend to kind of do this sort of thing regularly at once you're open?
Yeah, definitely. Once we're open, we'll be having free days. We're going to work with CASA and WIC to make sure that we get free passes into the hands of kids. We might even just do a free day for several programs. So people who are in these programs don't have to like show a pass, show a card, show a stamp, like we just want it to be easy access for them and in a way that honors their humanity. So we'll be doing that. The Discovery Days will continue to do in small ways every month. We'll have a different theme, but this is really our chance to get the hundreds of people out to the site for free. Yeah.
What is this is more for staff. Thank you. I'm sorry. So why do we know why the Arts and Culture Committee recommended 5 instead of 7? What does that do to your budget bottom line?
Yeah, great question. The parts, because Allison and I talked a little bit, the parts I think we talked about pulling out were kind of the administration, the marketing, the photographer. Is that right?
Yes, so we decided that we would want to support the actual art pieces of this. So it would include the adhesive, caulking, ceramic figures, containers, embellishment and jewels, grout dye, cleaning supplies, hand washing supplies, hot glue refills, mosaic bases, mosaic tiles, paper goods, plastic bins for water, sponges, stepping stone casts, and storage bins. The committee felt that they didn't really think it was something that we wanted to support as far as like the photographer and the restrooms and things like that, but that they were in support of covering the
actual hands-on goods.
Hands-on goods. Yes.
Yeah, that's what we had discussed. And again, why I keep mentioning that $7,000 price point is, again, I'm just advertising for the costs of operating are real. I'm paying some staff to be there. We're definitely paying for bathrooms because we want that for small children. The photographer and videographer are really a key way for us to share. I was so impressed with that last presentation because of the visuals. The really nice visuals with the music and the gradient of it. It was very attractive. And so we want to be able to provide things like that that we can share with the Buellton Visitors Bureau, that we can share with the city, that we can give to you and have these kind of short little spots that can be used in other places, not just on our website. So we have a local videographer that is, I want to say he was like $2,800 just to walk through the doors, and he's doing it for $500. So that's why when it says photographer, videographer, we're getting a deal. If we can have him, great. If not, then we just won't have the visuals, but we'll still have pictures of kids doing mosaics and, paint and stuff like that. So there's advantages to doing the full funding, and we are still going to run this event. You could give us a stick of chewing gum. We're still going to run the event, but there will be sacrifices, right? Like there will be, people we can't reach out to. There will be groups we won't be able to advertise to. There will be services we won't be able to have without the full funding, but the event will still go forward.
No questions?
I apologize because I didn't make the meeting when I wasn't part of it. But as far as the photographer goes, I think that if we wanted to go and include that in our budget, he's also going to be artistic, and he's going to advertise, and he's going to be able to have pictures. And I think that'd be something that we would consider, which that would have been my point at the meeting. But I wouldn't mind going to the full 7 just because it's also helping the museum and keeping that rolling, which is a big part of the kids. And the mosaic, are they going to be? They take that home?
Yeah, great question. I was just out at the museum for 8 hours today, getting set up for our stuff. So what we're going to do is we have big forms and little forms. And the big forms we encourage people to make and leave there so that when they come, there's a stepping stone at the museum that they've made that they can see. And then the small forms, they're about 6 inches across, the kids get to take home. And it's really cool because we have not just the mosaic tiles, but we have kid-friendly stuff. So we have keys were super popular last year. Kids just wanted to throw keys and stuff. So I got a giant bin of keys from Art from Scrap. They're a partner we work with. It's great. We're going to embed in animals. So little, not live animals, but we're going to embed in little turtles and sea creatures and, animals you'd find out on the savannah. So we have a bunch of different things that are really sensory and really interesting to a wide variety of kids that they get to put into their little handheld one, the 6-inch one, and they get to take it home. And then some of those kids made 3 or 4 and they, the parents like, you can take one home. They leave all the rest at the museum, and it's great because for our fundraiser this weekend, I was just making a ferry pathway through Fairyland with all the mosaics that were left over. So it's a cool thing for them to come see.
Have you ever sold any of your children's artwork?
No. So
Gallery maybe with it.
when we open, what we're going to do is 2 things. One that's kind of monetary and one that's non-monetary. So we will have a kiosk, like a, what's it called? When you just go buy stuff, like at the Natural History Museum, a store. We're just going to have a little store. Yeah.
Gift shop.
But it'll be mostly either things that'll help kids equip them to be outside. So little jeweler's loops that you can look at rocks really, close in. We'll have stuff like that. But then the rest of it's going to be things made by kids. So one of the gifts we give out to our donors is bath bombs that are made by a 12-year-old. That's I don't want to share any more about her personally, but made by a kid. Right. And that's what I hand to our donors. That's what we're going to have in our shop. We're going to have little sachets of herbs and things like that from our garden that the kids will package, they'll stamp or they'll paint or they'll write a little note. We'll have cards, that you can send out for Christmas and birthdays that are made by kids. So we will have that and make a little money, and then we'll be donating that back to the kids programs. The other thing we're going to do, which is going to be really exciting once we're open, is we're going to do art internships for kids. So we're working with our very first art intern. So it's all going to be art fellowships for people under 18. So our first fellow, which we're hoping to secure a little funding to pay for her time, she's going to make our Dino Dig exhibit. So she's going to hand draw the T-Rex bones and label which bone we have and what they're called and the shape and that sort of thing. So we're going to be working with teen artists and preteen artists really intimately in that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Any other questions? Any public comments on this?
No, sir.
Okay, I will bring it back for further discussion of possible motion.
All right.
Could you tell me what the fundraiser is for the silent auction?
Yeah, great question. No, we're not going to do a silent auction. We'll have a raffle. We sold tickets, and we're going to ask people to donate monthly. There's going to be games that people can play and win prizes and different ways to give. We have an Amazon wish list on for each of our exhibits. So if you really like dirt and trucks, or have a kid maybe that likes dirt and trucks, we have a whole list of things you can buy for that. If you really like fairies and the birds and nature stuff, then we have a fairy list for our fairyland that you can contribute to. So that's kind of the fundraising piece. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I'll get you some stuff.
Hey, AJ, can we defer this to, you guys can talk outside?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm
Bring
very
it.
excited by the needed purses.
You're right.
Summer camp.
Right. Okay.
We'll handle it.
So I'm gonna bring this back for possible, you can sit down if you want, actually.
Sure.
Thanks. Bring it back to council for further discussion or possible motion.
I feel like, especially that we just heard that 42% of our travelers are family-based, it's a missed opportunity from a marketing standpoint. And I think that's new information that I was unaware of. So I'm following with Councilmember Sanchez. I'm of the inclination to make a motion for the full 7,000 funding for the event to ensure the marketing's available to us.
Is that a motion?
A motion to do $7,000 funding for the San Ynez Valley Children's Museum Discovery Days.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Linda?
Okay, Councilmember Silva,
Aye.
Councilmember Hornick,
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Aye.
and Mayor King.
Aye. Okay, Ashley, thank you for coming in. Allison, thank you for coming in. Thank you very much. Next agenda item will be status update on Highway 246 traffic calming measures, and the lead on this will be Director Rose Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Member City Council. I'm going to queue up our exhibit here.
Is your mic on?
It should be on. Can you not hear me?
Okay, there.
Try to project my voice a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Now I
Okay, so just so, for some quick background for the general public, this is a concern, obviously, the city, has had, community has had for quite some time. And over the years, the city has tried to implement various degrees and measures to help, provide safety, for pedestrians and cyclists, in that area to cross Highway 246. And staff has continuously been working with Caltrans through various grant applications, working with different agencies throughout the area, and different departments within Caltrans so that they understand the difficulty, and the great barrier Highway 246 poses for us as a community. Not just that it divides the community physically, and pedestrians and cyclists are afraid to cross, et cetera, but the amount of traffic and particularly the speeds of the traffic that go through. So in the staff report, I've identified different things such as the larger sidewalk areas, the bike lane installations, radar feedback sign installations, the crosswalks, pedestrian, beacons that we've installed. And when we have available, we have the sheriff department, enforcement through that area. Caltrans has also recently completed their an updated speed survey for Highway 246. Unfortunately, as you know, with speed surveys, it is based on the speeds that they do document the 85th percentiles. But they still have worked with us in trying to lower speed limits outside of the city limits, immediately to the west, to try to reduce that down to 45 and 50, et cetera, further out west, to try to reduce that before it comes into the city limits. So they've been working with us on that. And then, as you are aware, with this particular status update, the city council did enter into contract agreement with KOA Traffic Consultants, who has been working with us on the city's circulation element updates, et cetera. So they are familiar with the needs in the city and community's desires for Highway 246. In the past few months, KOA they have met with Caltrans back in the beginning to kind of understand what basics as far as what Caltrans will work with as far as with the city options. And they've been waiting and have finally had acquired all the at least base map data that they have from needed from Caltrans to start their concept development and start looking at additional details. I mean, the toolbox for traffic calming is quite large, but that is greatly reduced once you get Caltrans involved, because Caltrans has specific requirements as far as what they do or do not allow within their right of way. And we are unfortunately beholden to that because that is their purview throughout the area. It's not under the city's control, it's under Caltrans control. So what I'm going to present to you tonight, what you have up on the screen that's being shared, KOA had done two options and alternatives to review for us based on council's desires to reduce street width, visibility, lane width, travel width, to increase pedestrian and bicyclist safety, reducing crossing widths across Highway 246, trying to find a way to channelize and identify key areas that we do want pedestrians to cross, not just Sycamore, where we currently have the flashing beacons for crosswalks, and Lalata, that there's crosswalks and flashing beacons as well. Trying to identify other areas of crossing that would be helpful. One of the options that they had presented includes a reduction of 1 lane to 1 lane each direction for Highway 246. And that hasn't been.
Sorry to interrupt. You said that they presented, was that KOA presented?
Correct. But that's not going to be presented to you tonight because the initial feedback Caltrans had earlier this year is they will not entertain that. So we've got to maintain 2 lanes in each direction. So the option that's presented to you tonight results in that main discussion. Flash back to this screen here. Okay, so I'll just kind of briefly provide the overview for you. As I mentioned, they've identified different areas where they feel it'd be appropriate to have additional crosswalks. Now we have this concept hasn't been had a go around with council, not with council, with Caltrans at all. So we don't have feedback on them yet. And Caltrans also hasn't provided us what additional details they may need in order to support any of these options. So there's a crosswalk being proposed at the Riverview Drive area. You'll see there's bulb outs extension of the sidewalk area at that intersection as well. And that kind of transition bike lane from against the curb and gutter and pushes it back out into, not into the moving lane, travel lane, but you'll see the extension of the sidewalk on the north and the south side. It kind of pinches that visually into the roadway. The lane widths have been reduced to 11 foot each direction, with the median reduced down to 12 feet. And you see turn pockets being provided as we move eastward into town for directional travel. So you have a turn pocket going south into Riverview Drive. With the bike lanes, we are propose the green colors, like similar to what we have on Avenue of Flags. So it further pops out that you've got a bike lane in that area. And they've proposed the bike lane to be a width of 7 feet, which is a little wider than the minimum standard of 5 feet, and an actual buffer that is, can't read that if that's 6 or 8, but there's a buffer between the bike lane itself and the path of travel for vehicles. Now that specific type of buffer, what that is at this point, we'll probably have alternatives to provide at a later time once Caltrans gives us feedback. We know that ground buffers such as either pavement markings or the flexible delineators is allowed. Those aren't particularly necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but off the top of our heads, those are going to be allowed by Caltrans. More permanent type features such as more firm ballers or curbing, things like that, that still needs to be discussed and get feedback from Caltrans. So what we're just proposing and showing at this time is some sort of separation between the bike lane and the travel lane itself. You'll notice as we move further east, this is not necessarily a raised median because this is near term. Again, the solutions we're proposing for this first phase with Caltrans as far as near terms are non-concrete type features, because we want to have them approve something on a fairly quick basis. And we want to be able to test out these improvements to see if they work. And then later in future time frame, if we find that it is positive improvement and they work, we can look at more permanent type features like concrete raised medians, etc. The idea is in this median area, there would be no turn lanes. You can't cross from north-south direction or east-west direction. It'd be a fixed area. Whereas right now, that's kind of a open, it's striped as an open turnable area, even though there's no areas that driveways you can turn to, but that's how it's striped. Moving further east, you'll see the turn pockets at Sycamore Drive. We've got the same, we've already done the improvements that pushes out sidewalk in both locations. We're planning to maintain that. They will be investigating not just a change from the flashing beacon that we have now to what is called a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which is an actual red light that would be pedestrian activated instead of the flashing yellow at this point. That's been instituted in some other areas as
Signal Hawk,
Yeah.
Signal Hawk, right?
Right, the
think it's
signal
called
hawks just for the
Deleta.
pedestrian beacons, but you know, the term is pedestrian hybrid beacon because it actually has a red light. It's not just flashing as a warning that pedestrian there, but it does identify for vehicles to stop. There's specific criteria that's required for that. And Caltrans will have to review that as well. We think that this should be able to be warranted because we do have the volume, but I can't say that for sure until
Yeah, I've
Caltrans
been
does his
talking to them
review.
about
So that's one of the items that is definitely going to require Caltrans feedback on. So as we move further to the east, you'll see that continued striping change where you have restrictions to move between east and westbound lanes. Continued separation and green striping for the bike lane. And then, sorry for my transitions here. One of the other areas that they're proposing additional beacons and crossing is at the Kaylor intersection. So that would be new striping as well. And continuing east, we have the existing striping already across Highway 246 at Lalata, but also looking additional striping going at the cross streets for Lalata and Park Circle as well. And then as we move further east, we already have the crosswalks on Industrial and the signalization there, but we have the striping improvements with the green marking along Highway 246. Now, at this point between Industrial Way and Avenue of Flags, we already have a reduced roadway width there. So there's not much change. You'll see the lane widths, median width has been reduced to 12 feet, again, to try to reduce the amount of roadway in that area, and then so on. There is a proposal here, and we're not sure how this will work, is there's the flashing beacon at that kind of awkward, it's not really an intersection between the post office exit right outside here and then Palm Way to get a crossing at that location.
Very cool.
Avenue of Flags, you'll see we have it's just a continuation of the crosswalks that we currently have at this point in time, but we have the separation, continued separation of the bike lane and the travel way as well there. And a lot of these areas, it's going to need a lot of coordination with Caltrans, particularly at the intersections, because once you start getting into turn lanes for the path of travel, they'll have comments on that for sure. So they have not currently submitted this to Caltrans yet. We're still working with them on the narrative for the report that they're going to submit with this. But just wanted to provide you with an update. I don't have an additional time frame for this at this point in time. It's going to be an iterative process with Caltrans because while they know what the Caltrans comment was, they want the city's support for whatever plans they look at. Well, at the same time, we need their support on what they want, what they're going to likely approve, because we don't want to waste city money on preparing designs, concepts for something that's they're going to say absolutely not to. They've got Caltrans criteria, there's STAA requirements because it's the flight emergency landing areas for aircraft. So there's specific requirements that we need to adhere to as well first. So again, it's going to be an iterative process. we're trying to get them to give us the basic criteria, okay, we're going to allow X, Y, and Z. And we can, once we get that kind of dedication from them, we can have a better set of criteria we can bring back to council to review. The city obviously is committed to, and we've provided that with Caltrans. We already have secured funding for design once we do get an approved concept. So we'll get that going, and then staff does plan to also submit for other grant applications. So we'll have some start of funding for construction once we do get that. So we're on track to keep moving forward as quickly as we can. So it's a matter of getting submittals to Caltrans to prove a concept design and go forward from there. With that, I'll entertain any questions you guys may have.
Any questions for staff? No.
Just two. One is, I understand, as roughly estimated, could you just quantify if this was a plan submitted or approved, and not just say this is where we went forward with it, how much does it actually shrink down in relative terms? You know, like, are we talking like a couple feet? Like, I just, for the sake of being able to explain this to what we're trying to accomplish, it'd be great to just have that number of feet shrunk.
Yeah, so I would say, looking at this, we've probably shrunk this maybe 10, 15, 20, 25 feet across the roadway.
It shrinks at 20. This could shrink to,
Well, I'm sorry, the travel lane.
yeah.
The travel lane would be, well, we already have a 5-foot bike lane there now.
Mhm.
And so we're increasing the bike lane to 7 feet, and we're adding a 6-foot buffer on each side. I can't recall what the lane width is right now, or the medium width, but figure that in itself, that's 6 to 12 feet on each side. So yeah, that's roughly about 25 feet at least.
Okay.
In each of these
So
areas.
this is substantial shrinking when it comes to what's being
Right.
proposed right now.
Right.
And then my other question is, just for the sake of understanding of it, I'm sorry, this is where planes have to land to? Just that caught me off guard, but I just.
So, I guess back in the day, if I don't know the exact flight pattern, but if there was, I can't remember if it was the shuttle or something like that. This is an emergency.
Just for the sake of us knowing, there's an additional layer like that on our road.
This is Highway 246 through Buellton, and especially in the vicinity where it crosses Highway 101, is subject to a number of different standards, different layers of regulation and standards that have to be met. This is not as simple as taking a stretch of Highway 246 outside of town and saying we're going to do this with it, because it has to meet standards for trucks, which may be in excess of the California legal limit for truck length. It has to meet this aircraft landing standard, which I'm sure none of us had any clue about before this got started. We're discovering through this process, as Caltrans starts to talk about these things, that it's more than just lane width and volume of traffic. There are other regulations that have to be met in order to maintain both Highway 101 and Highway 246 to the standard that Caltrans expects them to be. So
it was this wide for the space shuttle.
That's why my understanding is that's why the highway was designed the width that it
When
was.
they came off the freeway, they wouldn't be taking out telephone poles
But
with wings.
It was for the fuel. That was
Yeah. And I suspect that maybe one of the reasons why they're not willing to look at meandering on this stretch of the highway is because it needs to maintain this long straight stretch of a path. But I don't know if Rose has gotten into it a whole lot. I haven't delved a whole lot into why these regulations are there, but there are a series of layers of regulation.
Just good for the context of knowing, so that it helps qualify it when there's frustration on things of this. So thank you for that.
I used to own a 172 and I would not land on that. I would either take the wings out or
You
my
didn't have any
wheels
gas,
out,
you wouldn't.
one or the other. I'd land in a dirt field before I'd land there. Okay, any other questions? You did have some questions.
I first of all want to say thank you. It's awesome to see this. It's like, I feel like I know staff and council have been working on this for a long time. It's super reassuring and great to see the ideas and the progress being made. So thank you so much for presenting and working hard on this. I did have just one question. One was about the strip, landing strip. The other one is, this is probably also not non-viable because of the landing strip regulation, whatever else, but was there ever discussion about potentially roundabout at Avenue Flags then?
Yes, yes. So that was reviewed and taken off the table even before this. KOA reviewed the minimum requirements for right of way and the turnaround, and we don't meet that, even as wide as it is.
Turnaround?
Yes, in order to provide the circle required. Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? John?
I had a question. If we go with all these ideas and all these suggestions and Caltrans just says no. I mean,
Too bad for us.
if it doesn't, yeah, but I'm saying is that like, this won't work and that's unreasonable for us to, so is there anything else we can do?
Well,
I mean, if you're asking for something that they'll say that isn't something that we can provide or that we'll even entertain. That's what just a question.
Just to clarify that, John, I've had conversations with them and they are amenable to this. They wanted us to do this and come up with our idea before they would let us do any of this.
Okay.
And so we're getting to the end, end of the football field for a touchdown on this. Because if they were not willing to do this, they would have already told us, okay, don't even ask.
There's someone, when she started, she said, we check with Caltrans on this, and they said no, and then that was the end of that sentence. So I was just wondering what was next, if they were asking, if we asked too much, and it's too much over design, is that something that they'd say, well, we're not gonna,
right.
you can reduce it by 20 feet, but not 25 feet. And then
They'll let us know for sure.
Yeah.
We've eliminated the options that they have already said, don't even try.
Parameters, okay.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So this is what they wanted before they would let us do anything. So we're at that point. Okay. Any other questions? Any public comment?
No.
Any other questions for staff? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Come on, AJ.
You fell asleep.
Does it say we can't put it down to 2 lanes?
I'm sorry.
We can't reduce from 4 lanes to 1 lane.
That's
instead of-
correct. That is not something they
Yeah,
will. let
They're
us
not
do.
gonna do that. Okay, that's kind of
Absolutely.
disappointing because we need friction out there. No stoplights.
Stoplights are not included in here because the warrants will not be met. That's something the staff has been reviewing and keeping on top of for years, because it's not just the traffic that's on Highway 246, it's got to be the cross streets as well. And none of the cross streets will ever provide the volume required that would necessitate and provide any warrants for
Okay.
sales.
It's kind of disappointing because we want to create friction, and having talked to hundreds of your constituents, they all want signals. They're having a hard time getting out from Sycamore to even go to work in the morning.
Right.
Anyway, I'm very much for aesthetics, but I'd really like to see those stanchions between the bikes and that. I wouldn't ride my bike out there probably with stanchions, but I would like to see those posts or whatever, those rubber whatevers. And I would just have to say, we really are going to need strict law enforcement and try to get the speed limits down. Maybe is there a possibility of that?
Well, the speed limits are what they are. And the goal would be, once the improvements are done and with additional enforcement, that speeds would be reduced.
Right.
If we see that occurring, then we can request Caltrans to do another speed survey, and the speed survey would show that the speeds are lower, and that would therefore allow them to post lower speed limits.
Right. Okay. And the CHP section, just past our city limit there at Sycamore, that is crazy, with that 65-mile-an-hour sign up right next to our 45. And you go out and the speed limit's actually 65 miles an hour, like 50 yards on the other side of Sycamore. that's creating a launching pad effect. And I talked to the CHP about that today, and they said that's had to be something to do with site. In other words, all traffic's related, all the roads are flowing into each other.
Right.
And that 65 mph sign right there and speed limit, it's 45 coming into town,
Right.
which nobody's doing.
Right.
But to encourage people to do 65 right outside our limit, that's something.
Well-
I leave with you. You're the professional.
Right, and the latest speed survey from Caltrans shows them posting lower speed limit immediately west of the city, going eastbound and westbound,
Yeah.
so that it would be be reduced, not be this jump from 65 to
Right.
45.
Yeah,
We
good.
we may be seeing signage coming. We've seen the plans for it, but I haven't seen the sign installation yet that reflects this.
That's excellent. Okay. Well, it sounds like we're getting like 40% of what we want, which is better than what we have. Thanks for your work.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Okay, any other public comment on this? Okay, bring it back for further discussion and direction for staff. John? So there's basically two different iterations of this. One is preventing anybody from driving across the medians, which there are some driveways along here, which will mean people will have to come out, go right and make a U-turn at the intersection. The other one maintains the two-way left turn lane. And so therefore, some of these driveways will be able to cross that two-way left turn lane or enter the two-way left turn as prescribed by law, not travel more than 200 feet, and then enter into the traffic lane that they're trying to obtain. So that, I think, is where we are on both of these.
No,
Yeah, this one has a two-way left turn lane.
I think it's just one continuous road stacked.
Yeah.
No, he knows, but I don't see.
Yeah, this one in the top. Rose, the one at the, Rose, the one at the top, the first picture.
Which-
I have the pictures on my, she sent them to me.
Which
in my
section
computer.
are you looking at?
I'm looking at the top picture that we're looking at that has the stripes where that's lined to where those would be no crossing. That's one of your iterations of this. These are the ones that you sent me in the mail. That one,
The Riverview.
right,
Uh-huh.
that one. So that would eliminate the two-way left
But
turn.
once you get to industrial, where
Right.
you start having driveways, that
Stays open.
that
There's
stays
no
open.
areas at this point that shows that. So from Riverview to,
Industrial.
Here,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
so where it's striped that you can't be in the median and you can't make turns, there are no driveways that it would prevent people from turning left out. And
Okay, so
just
yeah,
Sycamore.
okay, I've
Yeah,
got
there's
clarity
no
now.
crossing. And what
Okay.
this prevents is folks that are coming out of this, the intersecting neighborhoods and roadways from using that median as another lane,
What about for
which is one of the
example-
problems that we're experiencing right now.
Okay.
They're
I see.
riding along that median
Okay.
as if that's an extra lane,
Okay.
extra travel lane. And then when you get down to, but the areas that do have intersecting streets, such as from the Ranch Club, you have Park Circle in their neighborhood that's across from Kaylor.
Gotcha.
That's still open, and they have the ability to turn left or right out of that drive.
Okay.
And you go further east to the other side of Park Circle across from Mulata, they can still turn left or right out of
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
area. They
All right.
just,
I have a question.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Let me see the Lada again.
Mulata's right here.
Okay, the green there, you're talking about putting something in 246 to thin it? That green?
The green, so in the bike lanes right now.
Yeah.
On 246, they're just striped against the
Yeah.
curb. So part of the proposal that we're going to submit is adding the green coloring within the bike lane, similar to what we have on Avenue of Flags.
Oh.
And not across the entire bike lane, just in certain areas.
But not anything to hit on your way. there.
No.
My other comment about that intersection, because that's where I'm at every day. I always use the bike lane to get out of the road so somebody doesn't run me over on their way to Lompoc, because they're always riding. And and you have to hug the curb there. And my wife always says, don't hit the curb. And I said, I know, but I have to get out of the way of this truck, is riding me, And everybody does it, but I take that right turn all the time. The other thing I do is I pull out and head towards Solvang, and rush hour, I take the liberty to get in the middle divider and then wait to merge so I can at least get halfway across the street. But the next corner, they don't have that opportunity. If they try to pull out of that other little corner, Oak Tree Way, they can't. They have to make a full commitment. They can't pull into because they have the divider there. So the people there don't get to pull out and get in the middle divider because there's your big islands in the middle of it. So the more of those, it makes it less convenient. I've pulled out of there and you just can't use the middle divider.
So you're saying, well, like when you're turning left
Yeah, so if you pull out of
into
Twin Oaks,
eastbound
you
from
gotta make
Twin
it.
Oak.
You gotta make both lanes. You can't get in the middle divider.
No,
And
you're right. If they turn left out of there, they're going to have to pause right here at the center of the
there's not
roadway.
room for that. You can't.
They're
you
still
can't
out of
stop
the
them.
travel way.
But that's
You
where
just
that's
can't
where-
ride along. They will have to pause in this area or wait until it's completely clear in order if they want to.
There's no room to sit sideways in that lane. But then are you asking for more islands down?
No,
below?
That's the only one that's there now.
yeah, this is there now.
Okay.
I don't believe there are any more hard medians that are proposed as part of
No,
this
this is
concept.
all
This is
striped.
near
Just
term.
right.
Right now, it's all striped, and the most that we would be asking them to do is maybe at either raise pavement markers or do like a stamped asphalt to create that physical, I guess, notice to motorists that this is not an area you should be driving through.
But in that vein, you're saying you could pull out in the middle of the road to wait and get between. You're making it so only like one of those smart cars could get up there to be between two lanes. I mean, I'm just thinking people that need to use the road. You're not making it very easy for.
Well, you can't take that out. It's already there.
Right, but that's why I wouldn't want any more. With the next time.
Well, I don't think there's any proposal for any more concrete.
Well,
dividers.
No, it's all
I'm opposed to those
painted.
as well.
Without the concrete, you still don't have the middle lane to play with or to get into merge. It becomes a merging lane if you
Are
restripe.
you talking about right there?
I'm talking about anywhere further when you make it smaller. Like there at
Mhm,
Kaler,
like right here.
you have a turn lane.
We have a turn lane instead
Right.
of the painted median
left
that
turn lane.
the two-way left turn.
So the guy at Kaler trying to go to Solvang can't pull in the middle divider there. If that's what you do.
If it's not a double yellow, you can.
No, This is
No,
a, this is
no.
a single travel lane. It's a left-hand turn lane.
Yeah, right. It's a
Right.
left-hand turn
Well,
lane.
the
but-
left-hand turn lane's not going. to
Right.
Solvang.
The only place they're taking it out, it looks like, is where they're striping it right there. We're in between the two left turn lanes.
Right. And and for what you're saying, the way it's striped right now, it's striped as a two-way turn lane. That is not a merge lane. It's a turn lane. So it's not, people are using that as striped right now, the two-way turn lane as a merge or
You
through
actually
lane.
can do that by law.
But
You can
and
get
so
in the
that's
two-way
one of
left
the
turn lane. You
areas.
cannot drive more than 200 feet.
Right.
So you can
Well,
get
you're
into a two-way left
eliminating,
turn lane.
uh,
So there, yes, they're eliminating the
Right.
two-way left turn lane.
That doesn't. Sounds good, like.
You
you're gonna
can't
go-
use it as a traffic lane, but you can
Right.
get into it and wait for traffic to clear and then merge into
Right.
the existing traffic lanes.
And so this
But
area,
they're-
you're right.
That's
It's,
that's
they're
where
not
they're
gonna be able
taking
to
that,
use
they're
that.
taking that out.
But
there.
you're reducing the, probably something you get, every one of those streets does that. Cause you get halfway across
Mhm.
and also it's wide enough that you could go almost sideways. But now with your reduction, you're gonna have to make it so somebody's gonna have to run across two lanes, which it's only safe to run across one at a time. I do this, I mean,
Right, well, the vehicle code says that you can obtain right of way lane by lane. So you can pull out into a traffic lane if you did not pull out in front of somebody that was an immediate hazard, you have obtained the right of way in that particular lane. And then you can obtain the right of way in the next lane and then proceed. Which most people probably do not know. But the whole point of this is that we are trying to squeeze this road down because it does look like a freeway. Some of the two-way left turn lanes are 20 feet wide, which, you know, makes it look like it's wide open. As the example I gave earlier, that if somebody's on a one-lane road, they get to the two-lane road, they speed up and then they slow back down when you get into the one-lane road. Well, that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is that people coming through here are now seeing not 12 or 13-foot lanes, but they're going to have 11-foot lanes. And in some cases on this diagram that I've looked at, is they're like 11.5. And then the left turn lanes are 12 feet. So the whole concept, I mean, yes, are we going to be a little bit inconvenienced? Absolutely. Are you going to have to change the way you drive on this particular stretch of road? Yes, absolutely. However, by hemming people in with these narrower lanes, we're making these huge shoulders and squeezing down all these lanes. And some of this area, I've looked at diagrams before, it's 108 feet wide. Well, there's some freeways that aren't even 108 feet wide. So this is the whole concept of this. And I understand your concern, John, and that some of this is going to be inconvenient for people, but we are going to have to adapt to it so that we can prevent people coming out of Solvang or Lompoc trying to race wherever the heck they're going to slow down through the middle of our town. And that's just what we're going to have to deal with. I mean, there's no other ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think most of this is a very good concept. We are going to have to forward this to Caltrans and get their opinion, because once again, it's their road. Now, they may say on some of this, they may take a look at this and go, no, you're not doing that. But that's up to them. But we have to forward this to them from this point on to, you know, see if they will actually even approve this. One thing before we go on is I have for years been trying to get a green curb across the street from City Hall where the new Little King coffee shop is. And I believe the businesses keep going out of business there because the design, can you bring that up there, Rose? Because the design, whoever allowed them to design that parking lot like that it was a very imprudent decision, because it's the worst parking lot that I've ever been in and out of. I have a 20-foot long truck and I cannot get in and out of there. And I'm certain that other people that have driven in and out of that parking lot go, screw it, I'm going somewhere else. So I would like KOA to take another look at this and at least put two green. Now, I have had conversations with the fire department. I've had conversations with Caltrans, on and on and on. So I'd like KOA to go back to the drawing board, take a look at this and see if it's feasible for us to at least put 2 parking spaces right across the street near the Little King from the steps that go down to the coffee shop, and then west of that. So at least 2 cars can pull in there, grab some coffee, get back in their car and drive off. And I know that they may have said, well, I don't know, at the expense of the bike lane, but realistically, I don't want there to be an expense of another business owner that spent a bunch of money putting a business in there and then go out of business because nobody drives in that parking lot because they can't get in and out. So I would like them to take a look at that and at least say, you know, it's absolutely not feasible. You know, a bicycle is not 4 feet wide. You know, they can, if there are cars parked there, they can ride single file through there and pass the cars that are parked in that particular spot. So another business that went in to that particular spot does not go out of business. Okay,
We
any
will have
other
them look at
questions
it.
for staff?
Mr. Mayor, we can do that, but I will say that Caltrans is not likely to give us an answer on that other than no, you can't, unless and until we get the fire department to give us an indication that that would be permissible.
And that's
So that needs to come first.
right. And that's the conversations that I've been having with them. And we
Okay.
need to get an encroachment permit to paint it green, et cetera. So I know that. So those are the continuing conversations that I'm having.
Yeah.
But I want them to take a look at it, KOA to at least take a look at it and say it's feasible or it's not feasible before we even go further with Caltrans and the fire department. Any other questions?
Just confirming, this is just a receive and file, correct?
Yes,
correct.
yes. And this is going to be forwarded to Caltrans. Any other question? Okay,
Love it. Thank you.
Finish with my tirade. Okay. So let's go and receive and file this and move on to,
Quick bathroom break.
yeah, go ahead. Let's take 5 minutes.
I stop, that.
Okay, moving along. Number 11, this would be resolution 2425. Not going to read the whole thing. This is regarding Riverview Park, and the lead on this will be Andrea Kiefer.
All right, good evening, Mayor King and members of City Council. An initial study and mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, or MMRP, has been prepared for the Williamson property. The Williamson addition to Riverview Park consists of a phased capital improvement project to construct a multipurpose recreational facility and to repurpose existing buildings for uses such as an event facility, children's museum, and library/community room. So there's 24 acres total, 6 parcels on this property. It's adjacent to Riverview Park. The upper portion's 4 acres, the lower portion's 20 acres. There would be a new paved access driveway proposed from Riverview Park East, paved parking lot across the portion of city-owned land to allow for future access to this facility on the property. So basically, staff based the project description for the Williamson ISMND on potential future uses, some of which have already been decided on by City Council and some of which have not yet been considered by City Council. However, here it's important to note that individual projects proposed in the future on the Williamson property would be brought forward to City Council for consideration. While the ISMND was prepared based on anticipated future development on the site, it does not in any way require that the Williamson property be developed with improvements and uses as indicated in the ISMND. But what it does do is that if future development is consistent with what was analyzed in the ISMND, then the environmental review can be considered complete for those projects and improvements. So alternatively, if development is proposed that is not consistent with what was analyzed here in this ISMND, then additional environmental review may be required in the future if the uses change. So that's just the basics of the purpose of the ISMND and what it's covering at this point. So the ISMND did separate out the project into 2 phases. I won't go into detail of what the phases are and what the projects that were analyzed are, but some of them have come forward to City Councils, and some of them are just sort of ideas in the future that may be palatable for the site. So all of those details are in your staff report in terms of what projects were analyzed in the ISMND to be, in theory, potentially placed on the site in the future. So, so again, City Council would review these individual projects if and when they would come in the future. I will just note here that the ISMND was prepared in accordance with the requirements of CEQA. A copy of the ISMND is included as Exhibit A to your resolution 2425 in your packet this evening. The ISMND did conclude that the implementation of the project could result in potentially significant impacts. And so because of that, mitigation measures were identified in the ISMND to reduce the significant effects to a less than significant level. Basically, the required mitigation measures would be included in any future development on the site if the development is consistent with what was analyzed in this ISMND. Additionally, there was an MMRP, or mitigation monitoring and reporting program, which basically summarizes what the mitigations measures are, the timeline, and who would be responsible for ensuring that they are complied with. And those would be satisfied, of course, as development takes place on the site that's consistent with the project as defined here in the ISMND. I'll just note quickly that the MMRP is included as Exhibit B in your resolution. The ISMND was circulated for public review. We did receive 1 comment, and we are going to be providing from APCD, Santa Barbara County. We will be providing a written response to them upon approval of the ISMND this evening. All of that information is included, including our response, or draft response to APCD is included in your staff report. So with that, the recommendation is that City Council consider adoption resolution 2425, approving the ISMND and MMRP for the Williamson addition to Riverview Park and making findings under CEQA. That concludes my report, and I'm available for questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to council for any questions of staff. Question?
No questions.
No. Any public comments on this?
No comments.
Okay, I will bring it back to council for a further discussion of possible motion.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Seconded.
Linda?
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hornick.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Silva.
Aye.
And Mayor King.
Aye. Hey, let me get up to speed of where we're at, since I have to go through about 800 more.
I go down to.
What page is, what is it?
Next 848.
Jesus.
It's 723 pages in 3 minutes. Very good.
You'd read it.
Good record.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to get you said 848, huh?
Yeah, 848.
849.
849.
You'll land in a close enough area.
Jesus. Okay, moving on to approval of library parking lot plans, and this will be Public Works Director Rose Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members, of City Council. Last time City Council reviewed the plans was in 2023. The plans are now 100% complete, but since the time you've last reviewed them, we have been identified and instructed by our biologists that we have some other areas of concern for the drainage area, and we have to contact appropriate other agencies. So because of that, we have modified our plans to have a phase 2 portion of it, which will put the drainage improvements and the short access road that goes directly from the existing east parking lot to the new parking lot as a future phase. So we've also modified the plans to now show improvements to our existing access road that goes from the east parking lot down south across the drainage creek and back up onto the meadow where the proposed parking lot is going to be. So those plans now reflect all these improvements. We've also updated the cost estimate, which you'll notice have increased as all construction costs have over time. But we will be ready to bid this at the end of this month for phase 1 of the project, including the road improvements to our existing road access improvements and the parking lot. With that, we've provided the plans as the latest set in the attachments, and staff is looking for council to approve these plans so that we may go out to bid. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, bring it back to council. Any questions for staff? John?
Yeah, we talked about this before with the conduits and going up and down and oversizing the access for electric and whatever for future, because there's more future things. So that, and all the utilities, are they coming off of the library property?
There are some conduit that's being placed there, yes, so that we are prepared. They will be coming off of the library property to the north. Some of the improvements we're leaving off because since they would be specifically related to future EV stations, there's grant monies to install all of those items as well. So we have them identified. They can be alternate items. But since EV stations are not part of this, we're hoping to, in the future, obtain grant funds for those specific improvements.
Okay.
I would,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and oversize the conduit. In the future, if we're gonna do something, we don't have to go get a grant and put a bigger pipe in. We could pay for a bigger pipe today and have better access. I just think it's to decide if we're gonna do something bigger, better, we're gonna tear the whole place up to put more conduit in. I'd like to make it part of the plan to make it.
I think that's a minor adjustment, isn't it,
Yes,
Scott?
correct.
A minor adjustment on that, yeah,
Before,
okay.
and
I mean, yeah, might as well. I mean, instead of having an issue later and say, gee, I wish we would have.
That's something we don't need to amend the plans for. We can
include that in here. That's not a problem.
It is a modification.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we're not saying, gee, I wish it would have. Okay.
can handle that.
Any other questions?
My other
Go ahead.
comment.
Well, let's wait. Let's see if there's any public comment on this. Just wait for comment. Any public comment? No. Okay, I will bring it back now for further discussion of possible motion. You have a question?
Did I miss my chance?
No, go ahead.
So, why do we break it into phase two for the other crossing the culvert?
Because there are environmental issues and there's been identified specific habitat, and we need to obtain specific permits from Fish and Wildlife, et cetera, for that.
Can I go into deliberation? I have a comment that is immediately related to that question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Calling it? Okay, great.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to again stress my concern about having the cars go alongside the BMX track and the playground there. And I know that when we have we get the parking lot, people will be utilizing that, and they'll be utilizing that ingress egress road there. And I think that it's in order to enable that not to occur, to reduce the amount of time that is occurring, we need to get that second phase going as soon as possible, right? Because then we can shut down that ingress egress road.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I just wanted to, whatever we can do to get going on that too, I'd be hoping we could prioritize as well.
Well, all the environmental work is you guys have just approved prior to this. So as soon as that gets done, we move into that phase of reviewing. We already have the plans. So it's a matter of just submittal. And now that the environmental's been certified by council, that can move forward.
So I'll go down there with you offline and we'll take a look at what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk to Scott about
Right.
it.
And staff has been working on improvements on that. There's signage in there to watch for crossings and potential conflicts between bicycles, pedestrians, and motorists. There's a speed limit sign that we've installed there. And one of the things that we have not included yet is there's some like fence type barriers that we can put along the bike area.
I think that's what
Yeah.
you're referring to, right?
That's my
So,
concern.
okay, you and I
Right.
will talk about that
Right.
offline. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, these steps, I don't like the sharpness of the steps. And I know that it costs twice as much to have like 4-inch steps and 7-inch steps. But for the matter of seniors and kids in strollers and everything else, kids tumble down 7 stairs. I have 7 stairs in my house and kids tumble down all the time. So what I would like to do is have like 4-inch steps and a longer walkway. Because the other thing is the elderly are, if they go, I don't know how many times you go up and down stairs every day, but if you go even to a parking structure and have to go up to the next flight of stairs, but the older people, it's arms. So I'd like to, for safety, for one, and for liability for another, I'd like to take consideration to have a longer walkway and smaller steps.
There's a minimum requirement for stairs.
Correct.
right?
The
Is it 6 and
the
11?
steps that we've
6
designed,
and 11.
I can't recall the top, but these are designed to the standard requirements for steps. So any changes to this is going to require a change of design.
Yeah, I think are they 6 and 11 on your drawings?
I believe so.
I think that is the state minimum requirement. I cannot ever get to that page because the 800 pages I try to get through crash my computer.
Well, the other thing to consider would be wheelchair accessible, which is a long ramp.
Well, we are not providing handicap access
It's all
via
gonna be
this.
upstairs.
That's already provided
I
up
understand
above.
that. But
We don't need to require,
I'm not worried about the necessity of it.
Okay.
I'm worried about the comfort of it. You go to the dog park, you don't have 12 steps to go up to a dog park. You have a little ramp and you go back and forth. And it's not an effort. You can roll a stroller, whatever, and you can walk down. Even if you have a stroller, anything.
All the handicap access is gonna be up top. Those people that are parking down below don't need to go up the stairs.
I don't care about what's required. What I'd like is to have it comfortable for people to go to the library in an afternoon, that they don't have to climb, 50, 40 stairs to 20 some stairs, the full steps. There's older people that want to go to the library that aren't handicapped.
Right.
And there's people with, 4-year-olds going to the library. going upstairs. And I've been to a lot of places with casual stairs that aren't a burden, but a set of stairs with a 4-year-old is a feat. And that's, and if they're falling down, it's worse, but even carrying them up is one thing. And also, if you're carrying books, and you have a little, a book dolly or whatever, everybody here is gonna have to carry their backpacks and everything up and down these stairs. And if we have meetings there, the people are rolling their attaché cases now in rollers.
I mean, that's your only other option though, John, is we put the parking down below because that's the space that we have. And
Well,
we're not putting in an elevator.
So if you look at page 855 of the packet, that shows the staircase in a little bit more detail. You'll see on the plan view the marks of the areas of the steps, and there's periodic areas in between that is flat area. Well, relatively flat. There's a slope, but they're not steps. So there's somewhat of a landing in between every so many steps. So we've tried to optimize the grading and construction for the staircase so that one, it's not this straight. We can't do the shortest run because that goes straight up and then you don't have that grade, and we're trying to kind of conform with the slope in that area and provide enough landings in between so it's not all steps. So
But
I
you're
feel
right.
that we've completed that,
My point is the
review.
heights of the steps and what would it hurt if we put handicap parking in this parking lot?
Or
For
there will
what?
be handicap parking in
Why?
the future.
I'm not following you on this. Why would you want to do that?
Why wouldn't you?
Because the handicap parking is up top where the barn is. Handicap people don't have to drive down.
And if there's not
that
enough.
parking lot.
Let me just ask a question, because I totally get what John is saying, and I
Thank
mean,
you.
with 2 little kids myself, there's gonna be a ton of strollers and attaché cases and yoga mats and people like Judith Dale and you and yoga and whatever else up there, right? And that's a good clip
Why
to
don't we
go up.
make it comfortable instead of going up?
I don't know that it's gonna be feasible to do that, but I mean, I'm sure that's something to look into.
I'm not sure how much else we can do other than this. I mean, to keep it like a rolling slope, other than it'll have a switchback at some point and do much more grading. But again, as I mentioned, we would have to redesign this.
Just
So
the
maybe we
stairs, though, right?
Well, that's still a major portion. Yeah, just the stairs, but you're looking at grading and the retaining walls and the rest of the impact on that slope.
But the way this is designed, it's stairs, a landing, stairs, a landing.
Correct.
Stairs, a landing.
So you can only fall down 7 steps.
I think what John's saying is that we could do it better, and I mean, I think it might be a little too late for them, but I see your point, John.
I don't see why it's too late. You're gonna just take a little longer to do it.
I for the life of me, can't think of any reason why you would want to put ramps from there to the top when all the handicap parking is up top.
How tall of a set of stairs are these?
There's a children's museum, and you're gonna be taking 2-year-olds up there. You're gonna be taking 4-year-olds up there, whatever, it's not gonna just be.
I have 4 grandkids under 5 years old, and all of them love to run upstairs.
Maybe if they're carpeted. I just, for the little bit extra cost.
It's about
make it
22
nice.
feet.
And,
Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? No, okay, no public comments. I will bring it back for a possible motion.
I have a question. Let's just say we wanted to reevaluate the step. How would we go about that?
Well, we'd have to go back to our design engineers and they'll redesign an alternative. I don't know how long and what kind of an effort that will take.
Are these the standard that I just said, 611? There's California state standard. correct?
Yes, they are state
611.
standards.
All right, any other questions? All right, I will move that we approve the library parking lot plans as is.
Second.
Linda?
Hey, Mayor King,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Silva,
Aye.
Councilmember Hornick. And Councilmember Sanchez.
No.
Okay, moving on, that passes. Moving on to discuss a possible tree planting program. Lead on this will be Scott Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. The item before you this evening is an initial discussion of possible program by the city to enhance the number of trees that are located here in the city. The program has been brought up on a couple of different occasions by Mayor King and Councilmember Hornick. It's been referred to as a 1,000 trees in 1,000 days program. The direction of the city council in this case was to bring this back for discussion and direction to staff as to how to implement such a program if the council were to decide to do this. In looking at this, staff evaluated a number of different aspects of this, of a program such as this that would need to be determined. First and foremost, we would need to identify a funding mechanism. We would need to identify some sort of a time frame. Obviously, the 1,000 days that has been identified, roughly 3 years, gives us an overall time frame, but we would need a more granular time frame set up for different phases of the project. There would need to be a determination as to what types of trees we were talking about, whether we were talking about planting large specimen trees on city property or very small trees being handed out for individual residents to plant on their own property. There, of course, is any number of options in between that can be considered, could be considered if the council wishes to go that way. But time frame becomes important when we're discussing this, simply because acquisition of trees, no matter what size they are, can be a problem. There's during peak construction season, landscaping season, et cetera, it can be very difficult to get a hold of trees. We need to pre-order them where possible. And we may need to reach out to several different suppliers in order to obtain the number of trees that we might be talking about over this 3-year period. And lastly, the last category of things that we would need to discuss is what I've referred to as process. What is it that the city council wants to accomplish with this, and how do we want to do it? The primary consideration from my perspective as I was reviewing this is that we would have essentially 3-year period to introduce 1,000 trees into the city. And 1,000 trees over 1,000 days, it doesn't sound too terribly overwhelming. The problem is when we look at the city of 1.5 square miles, we need to find a place for 1,000 trees to go. It would be reasonable to assume that we could plant a number of these trees on public property. We have medians on Avenue of Flags where we could plant trees. We have parks that have areas which are underplanted that we could plant trees. We might approach the school district to see if they wanted any trees that we could help assist in planting of. We could look at private properties such as commercial developments and offer incentives for developers to upsize their trees that they would normally plant a very small tree. We could give them some financial incentive to upsize those. But realistically, in order to dispense 1,000 trees over 1,000 days, we're going to be looking at something much less grand in scope, and that would entail buying very small trees and distributing them in large numbers at events. And the purpose of this program, if we're going to go about that, is less about actually providing 1,000 trees that are going to be here right now than it is putting the message out to the community that trees are important for our environment and encouraging everyone to plant trees and to take proper care and maintenance of those trees once they're planted. As I mentioned, there are any number of approaches we can take with this. I am happy to go whichever direction the council wants to go with, but what I would suggest, if this is something that we want to move on very quickly, is that the city council consider some sort of an initial budget allocation so that we can start doing some preliminary work on this. And I mean, if we were looking at, for instance, taking some initial steps and planting some larger specimen trees in, for instance, Village Park or Riverview Park, we could use some initial funds to identify appropriate trees that might be planted in those locations, to have the engineering staff take a look at what would be required to transport those trees and plant them in place, make sure irrigation and such is installed. It wouldn't take a tremendous amount of money up front, but if you give us a little bit of an allocation right now, we can come back with a more firm estimate to get this program rolling. We can investigate sources for small trees for distribution at city events such as Brewfest in the spring. Maybe even Winterfest, even though it may not be the appropriate time for planting at that point, we'll have to look at that. I'm sorry? Barbecue bonanza in the summertime would be an excellent one. These are all options, but what I'm getting at here is I've identified some of the primary considerations I think that the council may want to look at. And we're happy to take direction from the council at this point, with the recognition that moving further than this is going to require a bit of budget allocation.
Okay. I will bring it back to the council. Any questions for staff?
You just look like a piece of the back, so. Do we have an account set up to receive any donations we have for this initiative? Should we have them?
We can establish very quickly an account that we will be able to place donations in. It just needs to be segregated from general fund monies because it would be restricted funds. Chanel, that could be set up fairly quickly, correct?
Yeah, we already have a fund of such nature. It's just create a GL account number that we'll start contributing to.
Is that the beautification Buellton
Is
fund or
that-
is that? No.
No, it's just a fund that we have for deposits.
It's essentially a developer deposit fund.
Okay.
We would just put together a sub fund of that would be restricted to only this program.
Okay, gotcha. So that I think is my only question.
Okay, John?
Yeah, could this all be part of what the developer would put into, or we could require the development? Like, so we have ad hoc committees to get something for their development, and then they build a bathroom or something like that, or something. But could it be something that they could get a little lower, lower parking for more trees?
Well, within the specific plan area, the Development Opportunity Reserve program you're referring to is that development agreement system that is set up wherein a developer can move into a higher level of intensity of development in exchange for some contribution to the city. And that has taken the form where it's been used so far as cash deposits for the city for improvements in the general area. But if the council wanted to use some of that money for the planting of trees on the avenue, or if the council were wanting a future developer who comes through to contribute funds directly into this tree account, that could be worked out through the development agreement process also. It is very possible. Yeah.
Okay. And also if somebody wanted a tree in their yard, could we just pay for the tree and let them plant it instead of having all of them public works?
In most cases, yes, I would suggest that, especially if we're dealing with the very small trees, we would simply hand it out. Maybe it would have a slip of paper attached to it saying how to plant it, how to maintain it, and just give them away. If the council wanted to look at planting larger trees on private property, we could use a program similar to the program we have for the beautification grant. Someone could come and apply to the city for a larger specimen tree. City staff would go out and evaluate the potential of a location on the property for it, supply the tree, plant the tree as part of this grant application. That's one way of doing it also. It just depends on how much money is available and the availability of the trees.
So we had a program like this before. So Rose, were you here when
Cash for grass.
when we had
What you're talking
70
about?
trees and I want to say Ando, but
When,
Yeah,
then when the city of, acquired, or in
Yeah.
theory, 70 so many trees.
you had 70 trees and it was some kind, and we were actually running around trying to get people to take them because we had.
No, I don't
these
think
trees.
so. There was a period when I had started where someone was donating some trees or something like that, and I believe the golf course accepted all, if not most of them, and placed them there, but not onto.
This did happen
private
before, and we got 70 trees to go fell. And we were finding people, some people said, can I get 2 trees?
I think I remember this. So this had to do with Edison. There was some surplus trees coming from, not Edison, PG&E.
This is a different deal.
Oh, okay.
for the city.
Any more questions?
Yes. First one is, how do we, I'm assuming before we can move forward with this, is there a means that we plan on qualifying the types of trees that are appropriate from the standpoint of environmental root structure, water resilience and all of that? And like, isn't that kind of like, we can't really move quick till we have that whole arborist list?
Well,
I can address that. Eva. Powers.
Buellton Botanic
Buellton
Garden.
Botanic Garden has a very knowledgeable in the trees that will grow in this area, soil it has to have, what kind of water, how much you have to water it, et cetera, et cetera. So we have her as a resource to say what kind of trees. And I think what the part of the program is shade trees, mostly shade trees, because if you get ornamental trees, they don't grow very fast, they don't provide very much shade, so we're looking at bigger trees, sycamore trees. To provide shade in some of these areas, especially like in the park, or some of these areas have very little shade. I know on the south side of Riverview Park doesn't have very much shade. I know there is some up by the sidewalk, but we can do places like that. So that's gonna be a conversation for another day.
Can I piggyback on that?
Go ahead.
So do you have another question? Like, cutting you off?
No, let's, yeah.
Well, so just because you were asking about, we asked that question to the green team. And should Eva Powers or whomever, volunteer group come together, they would have to put together like a budget of, this is roughly what it's gonna cost to assess all that information, right? Like, here's a list of trees we think would work. This is what like irrigation system figure require, whatever else. So we have the volunteer group that is willing to sort of address that, at least initially, so we know what kind of cost that could even to get it off the ground running might entail. Does that make sense?
I was just gonna add something here. Well, we do have an approved tree list for the city, so, perhaps Eva, if,
Yeah.
she's willing, could take a look at that list and maybe narrow from there or
Right.
add to it. But we do have an approved tree planting list that we provide to developers for their projects, for their commercial and, their private development projects. So they could use that and start from there at least.
having a group of volunteers that
Yeah.
could provide that service would be great because it would reduce the amount of funds that the city would have to spend on doing that. Otherwise, we would have to either hire our own landscape architect or bring in our landscape company that we have do our city landscaping to evaluate those things, which we would probably want to work in consultation with anyway if we're planting something on city property, because they're the ones who will be maintaining it in the long term. But yes, a volunteer corps like that could save the city a considerable amount of money
Right.
moving forward.
Okay, any other questions?
Oh, I've still got a few. I'm sorry,
Okay,
it's gonna
yeah,
be a
go ahead.
while.
No, go ahead.
Secondly, my question is there a concept? So I know that like where I'm over at in Thumbelina neighborhood and all that, trees that are there that have become infected or dying, or there's a liability of the branches falling into that. When it's a city-sponsored program like this, do we have any considerations of these issues? Does that become by us signing off on it? Does that become our problem? Should that be in the future?
We will make it very clear if someone accepts a tree from the city that they're planting it on their property at their own risk and they're required to maintain it. And
That's true.
yes, and if the council decides we want to look at a situation where the city is planting a tree on private property, we will also take that into consideration, but we will have the advantage of having either city staff or someone working on the city staff's behalf evaluate the placement of that tree to make sure it's proper for both the species, the the location, making sure that it's not going to interfere with underground utilities or lift foundations or anything like that. Yeah.
And if I can,
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna dovetail on this. The law says, if I am correct, Counselor, that a tree falling is an act of God and you would have to sue him, correct?
In some circumstances, yes, in some circumstances, no. There's some complications to it.
Okay.
It's gonna be, I've saved all my questions for this
Yeah,
one here.
absolutely. Go
So,
ahead.
yeah, so
Go ahead.
next question I have for is, in terms of city planned trees, and like if we're putting this in public areas, the infrastructure for irrigation, the staff time, would we be looking at this being something that like, are we as a council committing to the idea that we might be growing out our Parks and Rec department, our Public Works department for this? Would we be implicitly taking on the maintenance as this as well? Are we committing to that as a group here? And I'm saying this more just for us as a discussion, or is the idea currently in its iteration a separate subcontractor who's taking care of the maintenance for it?
If we are going to be planting trees on public property, the most cost-effective way to deal with that will be to build the new trees that are planted into our landscape contracts that we have currently. As they get planted, we'll have to have the landscape company reevaluate as we go. I mean, I'm sure they can handle 1 or 2 trees without a huge problem, but if we start adding a large number of trees to a park, they're going to come to us and say, we need additional funds to be able to service the park at the level they've been servicing it at. So yes, we will, just like adding any other city facility, when you add the facility, you add the long-term ongoing maintenance responsibility and costs along with that.
Okay. And finally, just from a funding opportunity for this, if we're going with kind of the title of Tree City, is that, what's the marketing ploy?
I want to be clear that this tree city designation is a designation distinct and separate from 1,000 trees and 1,000 days initiative.
Okay, 1,000 trees in 1,000 days TM. With that designation with it, I mean, oh my gosh, my sassy comment made me lose my track.
Yeah.
No, this, I'm getting punished. That's the act of God right there. Hold on, I will come back to it. I'll go ahead and talk for a bit. I'm so sad. It was a good question.
Let me just, if I can, clarify a little bit about that, right? So, and I can't speak for the initiative as a whole. I can just talk about what we talked about at Green Team. And I can say that the 1,000 Trees in 1,000 Days initiative is an idea that is a brainchild of Mr. King. And I don't, like I said, I'm not speaking with anybody, but the general consensus that I gleaned from the meeting, but like, should we fall short of 1,000 trees and we get 900 or 750? The idea is more that, as City Manager Wolf mentioned, the message that we are going to invest in trees in the city. We are going to get some nice specimen trees. We're going to provide better canopy coverage. We're going to provide some resources for developers who, want to include canopy coverage in parking lots that they have to build, or whatever that might be. Right. Shade, right. And that's the idea. And so part of that initiative as well is the idea that this team of volunteers who is going out, and there will be some funding required to be dedicated to them organizationally and actually planting trees depending on where we plant them. But also assessing the trees while they're out there is something that they said they would be willing to do. So if they come across a sickly tree or a degraded tree or something, it's not just about let's rip it out and put a new one in, one more for us. It's about taking care of the trees that they have. And that is in line with the Tree City USA designation.
And I thought of what my question was. Funding. Is it possible that we as a council could consider, and I know that we talked about this before with arts and culture, is it a means that we could look into passing something along the lines of a 1% contingency from any future development comes into the fund for the tree program? Because I know other cities have done 1% contingency donations for the arts and culture of the city.
Right. Our art and public places typically get somewhere like a 1% of the assessed or of the construction value, I think is the way it's typically done of new buildings or new construction that come in. We could look into something along that line. There are ways to do it that way. We can look at, voluntary donations from the public or from our local businesses, from tourists, from, we have a wide variety of funding sources, but as has been mentioned earlier tonight, we've also got a wide range of desired expenditures coming up, and so we need to figure out
And that was,
what's coming from where.
that was bandied about as well. The idea that volunteers could approach local businesses like hotels and do a $3 like voluntary donation after their stay. Like, and there was also the idea of, you know, they can slap, apparently, I don't know, maybe you know more about this than I do, but slap a QR code on those things pretty easily. And like, the idea is to foster a sense of community interest and engagement and say, this is my tree, right? And so the volunteers that are there, like, you know, they can have like a sense of ownership in the tree and all that. So
Totally respect that. Just as someone coming from private fundraising background, I would just say that if we're going to consider this, we really need to think about creating a structural long-term funding model for it, because philanthropy is wonderful, but you can't count on that. And I would say that if this was the year 2020 and we were depending upon donations for the tree program, we would not be anticipating that. And so I just think we may want to think about, if we're committing to this, we commit to it fully, and that we have to have that like funding model that we are saying it's so important. We're willing to have an impact on development in the town, because that's the only way you're going to be able to really count those dollars a bit more consistently. So
I appreciate that. And I think that the Tree City USA designation kind of attaches to that, because if you remember, one of the requirements of Tree City USA designation is a $2 per capita cost that goes towards the maintenance and care of trees. I think we kind of already meet that. Yeah, with discussions with Scott, he's confident that we do. Our contract with our landscapers doesn't specifically delineate that, but we're still confident that we would. But I think that what you're saying is a great point to point out to staff, if we give them direction to further this, that they should, build in the maintenance as a potential cost for this sort of thing. Like, what do you just ballpark? We can ballpark how much we think it's going to cost to get 15-gallon trees, X amount of 15-gallon trees, whatever else. Questions come up of where we can store them. Can we store them in our wastewater facility or some field or something? Is there a place we can store them? That's been suggested we buy them in iterations, seasonally and whatever else. And so all those things we can budget, or staff can budget, right, appropriately for that.
So here's what I'm gonna suggest, is that we could talk this thing to death. So I think that honestly, we should have 2 city council members as an ad hoc committee with civilians as well, like we did in the visioning back in the day for Avenue Flags. And then give a recommended funding for right now of a certain dollar amount, because this is the public meeting that we are in. And then the ad hoc committee can flesh out all the rest of these details that we can bring back to the city. And then the city council can decide on which way they want to go.
Do we need to dedicate funding to this tonight? Is that what you're saying?
We can.
I would suggest that we probably should, if we want to get started on this quickly. That will allow us to do some preliminary work and start thinking about planning opportunities and what's necessary for that, looking at tree acquisition, those sorts of things.
How much do you have in mind?
10,000?
Probably north of that.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's this is
budgeting?
just for the ad hoc.
Well, this
committee.
is
It's not necessarily, Scott, this is gonna be all the funding. that we're
No,
gonna have.
no,
We
no,
can
of
come
course
back at
not.
another time and say, okay,
Of
the ad
course
hoc
not.
committee decided we need $50,000.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we can start with that. If
Unless you want to do that now.
I'm saying, I would just argue too at the same point. It's like, if we're giving them, $10,000, probably doesn't even go for much of like a reporting thing to like do any kind of research on it. And so we'll just be back here having to backfill the 90,000 needed to get an answer of what is needed in some
Well,
ways.
Yeah, I mean, my thought initially was $25,000, maybe $30,000, and that will allow the ad hoc committee to sit down and start discussing some initial steps, and it will allow staff to then go out and start working those initial steps, and then we can come to the council once we know how much more we need as we go. I'm just an initial step or initial lump sum to get us started so that we're not having to run back here every couple of weeks. So
If I can.
Anybody disagree with the ad hoc committee?
I just want to say, it's more money than I thought we would need to get started for like just discussing how much is it going to cost us. That's what's on the table, right?
well, we can use it going forward for implementation.
I know.
I'm just saying, if we want to get started on this quickly, put a little more money up front so we can get moving and not have to, wait. We're coming into the holidays here. We have one meeting in November and one meeting in December. if you miss one meeting, you gotta wait a month before the next one comes up and we ask for funding. So just to ensure that we have enough to start the ball rolling, I would suggest a little bit more upfront because we know we're gonna spend a lot more than that before we're done.
Can we have,
Go ahead.
what are we gonna be spending this money on? I mean, are we gonna start buying trees? Or are we gonna start talking about it and having some horticulturists and engineers come up with
There's
ideas?
a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Right.
I'm not, this is the first time I've ever done something like this. I'm envisioning we're gonna have to bring in some sort of consulting expertise, whether that be our volunteers or whether that be somebody we pay for. We're going to have to look at, if we want to start this off with a big bang and plant a big specimen tree someplace, we want to get started on it right away. So we want to do site preparation and irrigation extensions and soil amendment and all the stuff we need to do, and then go find a tree to put in a hole. So
Let's commit to it. Motion to approve $30,000 to initiate the possible city tree planting program ad hoc committee budget. If we're committing to it, let's commit to it.
Well, I was just about to say that. And anyone opposed to Hudson and I being that ad hoc committee with Eva?
With Hudson and Dave on the,
Eva Powers?
yeah.
Okay. A second.
We have a motion for the money.
Motion
Yeah.
for $30,000 and formation of an ad hoc committee with Dave and Hudson on the committee.
You did.
I need
I would
to roll
second.
call it.
We need a second.
I'll second.
I thought you seconded.
I thought you seconded.
No, I asked if there was a second, but I will second it.
Oh,
That's what I have on. Excellent.
Okay, okay, well, I'll second it. There you go.
there we go. All right.
All right, Vice Mayor Silva,
Aye.
Mayor King,
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Aye.
and Councilmember Hornick.
Okay, moving on. City managers report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, given the hour and the fact that we have two closed session items to go to this evening, I'm going to dispense with my city manager's report.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor, do you have anything?
Not a thing.
Okay, I will close the regular meeting until September 26th at 6 p.m. And we will open a closed session after 5-minute break.
My computer died too.